Hello and welcome to A Review to a Kill, the James Bond retrospective podcast where we rewatch every Bond from Connery to Craig to review and rank each one. I'm your host, Special Agent Sedgwick, and returning for this debrief is an agent who would have punched C in the face.
Chris Carter.
Today we are reviewing No Time to Die, the 25th Bond outing from Eon Productions, the last Bond film made so far, and the finale to Craig's side universe. This is the third most financially successful Bond film of all time, making Craig, by far, the most financially successful Bond actor at the end of his run. He also did it the longest, taking 3 more years to make his 5 films than Roger had to crap out 7, ergo the juxtaposition in quality. The film premiered at the Royal Albert Hall on the 28th of September 2021 as part of the Royal Film Performance 8 event. Reception for the film was overwhelmingly positive. Audience reception was positive to mixed, with a small sect of extreme haters slightly rocking the scales.
A small but vocal sect of extreme haters.
Hey man, when you're tiny, you gotta be loud. Ask Chihuahuas.
What were they hating about?
Bond dying, female 007.
Oh!
Bond having a kid. I heard people complain about that.
Ah, the good stuff.
Broccoli should just hand it over. Fleming's turning in his grave, which is funny.
What you're saying is, if this Bond movie had come out a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, he would have been too woke for society?
They already say Bond's gone woke now.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my.
Made for $300 million, it made $774.2 million in the box office. Nommed at the Oscars for Best Sound and Best Visual Effects, and winning Best Original Song, becoming the third in a row to do so after Skyfall and Spectre won Oscars for their title songs as well. The film's other nominations include 5 British Academy Film Awards, winning 1, 2 Critics' Choice Awards, winning 1, Golden Globe Award, which it won, and also a Grammy. Originally scheduled for release in November of 2019, the film was postponed to February 2020 and then to April 2020 after Danny Boyle's departure from the film, before the pandemic pushed it back multiple times again to late 2021, giving it the record for the longest time between Bond films. It's also the first distributed by Universal after Sony lost the distro rights. Produced by Babs Brock and Mike Wilson, Daniel Craig retiring. The music teases, the logos fly, the dots roll out, and the theme strikes up. It's mellow but strong and cool. Bond walks out with purpose and turns. We hear the gunshot and the theme crescendo, but there's no blood drip over the op this time. Instead, Bond blurs and fades into white to transition into a snow-covered, ethereal, foggy forest. It's fresh and subversive, perhaps an allusion to the inevitable fate of Bond being killed, but there's no denying things are off-kilter and uneasy. Like, we're in a familiar place, but all the details are wrong.
They definitely made a good opening transition with this shot. The immediate feel you get is cold and bleak, and you immediately know something is off from the opening gun barrel scene. There's no red.
Shot at Logvan Lake in Norway, we see a trail of footprints before revealing a coated figure walking through the wood. We then key his CSA compact into frame, and this scene is technically set in the 90s, and this weapon wouldn't be introduced until the late 2000s, but fuck it. This is a dream, or flashback, spoiler. So Swan's head is just messing up details, I guess.
Maybe she wasn't sure.
The camera cuts behind the figure and pans over, revealing a house on the lake. Purpose-built for this film, with interiors at Pinewood. Masterfully shot. Not Roger Deakins level, but better than Hoytema.
Way better than Hoytana.
This is definitely the middle ground between Spectre and Skyfall in terms of artistic presentation.
Yeah, oh yeah, by far. Well, you know what? I would even say the middle ground.
I would say closer to Skyfall than Spectre.
It is closer to Skyfall than Spectre. Yes, it is way better than Spectre.
There's a soft glow and slight blur to everything, giving it that dream feel, but only ever so slightly. We can hear faint music before cutting to a woman doped and smoking a cigarette on her couch, listening to Dans la ville endormie, or In the Sleeping City, by French singer Dalida. She calls for her daughter, a young Madeleine Swan, played by Colleen Default. Interesting coincidence, Madeleine's mother is played by Mathilde Bourbin, and Swan's daughter is named Mathilde. They speak in French to each other, of course.
Of course.
Little Maddie goes down to get her mom box wine. Healthy relationship. And we see the figure approaching in the distance through a window. It's kind of horror movie-esque.
Kinda? It's almost terrifying.
Okay, it's deep art house horror. This whole opening sequence is.
It is deep art house horror. It is.
Maddie says her mom's depressed and drinks too much. Mommy Swan says, yeah? Well, fuck your dad and his murdering ass. How you like him now? For real, Maddie thinks her dad is a doctor who heals, and her mom straight says, nah, he kills people. Small world, eh?
I like how they totally gloss over the last movie and the backstory of Madeline Swan.
Do they?
Well, they do and they don't.
She said they got divorced.
Yes.
Which, I guess they could have, but it just feels like she's still too young here for like that happy, we came here for years and years as a happy family until the divorce. And
right.
It's just like, how many of those years did you actually get and remember?
Yeah.
Like, how old is she here? She's older than 5, but she's not older than 12.
Yeah, I was going to say 12 tops.
She looks like she's like 8 to 10 to me.
Yeah. Her
mom drops her wine on the floor, so Maddie goes to get cleaner, establishing the Beretta under the sink. She hears a noise while cleaning and looks out the window scared. She can't wake her mother. It's dead quiet. She looks again, and the figure is standing right in front of her, like a horror villain, complete with creepy-ass Japanese no mask.
Yeah, see, that creepy Japanese no mask and that totally white background, that expressionless, cold porcelain face, that's creepy as fuck.
Borrowed from kabuki theater culture, these masks are designed to take on different expressions depending on how they are worn and lit. The mask is a constant representation of the character himself, a near emotionless narcissist that takes on different appearances to different people. Near complete, then shattered and scarred, like the man. Its final form also harkens to the Phantom of the Opera, while the complete form's Myers-esque look lent to the horror movie opening.
Yeah.
Maddie runs for her dad's panic room with Spectre ring inside, but she can't get in, and Mama Swan is way too dope to move. Maddie cowers in fear as the figure shoots out the door and kicks his way in, right in front of her. He walks in and up to the mother, asking if Mr. White is home. She says no, he's gone. And he says his name is Inigo Montoya. Mr. White killed my father, prepared to die. Wait.
I'm pretty sure she doesn't have 6 fingers.
He says his name is Lucifer Satan. Wait. Lucifer Safin. White killed his family. Prepare to die. And he lights her up. I mean Swiss fucking cheese. Practically in front of Maddie. And worst of all, he didn't let her finish her cigarette.
Right? Why didn't that place burn down?
Safin goes upstairs and finds Maddie's room. She's hiding under the bed, his crampons stabbing into the floor with each step. When her Tamagotchi beeps and Safin turns, blind firing at the bed, Maddie pops up with the sink Beretta and lights Safin up, shooting him through the banister and off the landing.
Well, I guess that part of her story was true. Her father taught her how to shoot.
I feel like when she told this, maybe it was just too personal. I don't know you well enough to be like, yeah, and that dude killed my mom right in front of me, alpha dog style.
And then saved my life.
She looks over the edge, and he's laying still. His mask is shattered now, too. She sheds a few tears for her mom and gets to corpse dragging. This kid should be beyond traumatized. I'd call literally anyone right now to come and get me, but she's like, gotta bury the body.
Or at least get it out of the house. I didn't quite understand her need to get the body out of the house, other than just to get the body out of the house.
I'd be like, someone come help me.
Right?
I'm a scared little kid.
Your mother's dead. There's a dead assassin in the house. Maybe call your dad.
With his mask now in a more iconic and representative form, we also see his scarred face. After being dragged outside, he wakes up and does the Undertaker sit-up gimmick, causing Maddie to run onto the frozen lake. Somehow, her weight causes the ice to crack, and she falls in, even though he just walks right over her.
Well, to be fair, she runs out to the middle of the lake where the ice will be the thinnest.
She's trapped beneath the ice, drowning. He stands over her and aims his weapon, fully ready to shoot this child while she's fucking drowning. So bitter for revenge, but he looks into her eyes and goes into pedo mode, instead opting to shoot around her and break up the ice before grabbing her out of the lake. And man, he's damn lucky he didn't shoot her or just fall in himself.
Yes, he is terribly lucky neither of those things happened.
That was a spray.
That ice where he was standing would have to be at least 6 inches thick to withstand that kind of stuff. During my research, I found out that they had shipped some ice directly from Norway to Pinewood to film that scene.
The water exit has a cut transition to an adult swan coming out of the ocean. Leia is the main Bond girl again for this film, making her the first female to lead in successive Bond films. If this character was two-dimensional in Spectre, it's four-dimensional in this film. She's practically a co-main protagonist.
She is a totally different creature, like she's not even the same person.
She is the same person, she's just way more fleshed out and well written. There's so much going on with her and her strengths and vulnerabilities the entire movie.
Oh yeah, no. I much prefer this Madeline Swan to Spectre's Madeline Swan.
She just had a flashback to probably the craziest moment of her life, in which we saw her as a vice slave to her hedonistically depressed mother, who was then killed in front of her. And coming out of that, visually alone and surrounded by a great body of water, Bond approaches and asks if she's okay. So of course she smiles and says, yeah. Amazing colors, nice framing. Not godlike, but still, keeping up that artistic flair. This is shot at Spiaggia Santa Mare, a secluded little beach near the town of Maratea in southern Italy. They wind up the stunning coastal road of SS-18 south of Sapri. She leans on him, tells him to go faster. He smiles. We don't need to. We have all the time in the world. Which is also the song the score is playing in high strings from On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I hope you're ready for a lot of homage, because this movie is You Only Live Twice, the novel, with On Her Majesty's Secret Service movie glossing.
Yes, it is a straight homage.
Going through a magic tunnel, they end up in Matera, down in the heel of Italy's boot. Matera is a collection of ancient cave houses, known as sassi, dug from the soft volcanic rock. Matera was also seen in The Passion of the Christ, as well as standing in as Themyscira in 2017's Wonder Woman. But besides the added tunnel, Matera is also not built alongside a towering viaduct. That is a real bridge, but it's in a completely different location, which we'll come to later, and was added digitally to the aerial shot.
Yeah, very cool. They did a great job with the composite.
Pulling up in their DB5 in front of what is actually Sano 143 restaurant, they leave the car with the valet and walk up to the Palazzo Lucaresci along Via Muro. In fact, their hotel, the fictitious Palazzo, is a mix of 3 different locations, as the entrance they approach in this scene is the side entrance to Holiday House Bella Vista. Along the way, Bond looks over his shoulder at the sound of fireworks, and Swan calls him out on this, to which he just gets defensive and sternly denies it. They burst into their room, passionately going at each other. Their room is a set, built, not in a studio, but, amazingly, on a giant raised platform at the end of Piazzetta Pascoli, giving those properly gorgeous views of Matera from the windows.
Huh. So you can't rent that room, huh?
No.
Bummer.
It is pretty cool to see it on the scaffolding, just raised up in the air.
Oh, yeah.
We cut again to them banging as the Victrola spins Che Galida Manina, as sung by Enrico Caruso from Puccini's La Bohème. Data sang this song on Star Trek, and it's all I can think about in this scene. Bond stops the fun time for a minor interrogation, asking her where she went today, when lost in her mind. He, like Safin later, is exercising some measure of control in this way, even if this is far more innocent. Still opposite sides of the same coin, which, again, you know is going to be a thing. Goddamn, Craig loves his mirrors, or at least Purvis and Wade do.
Well, it seems like mirrors are the thing in Hollywood lately. But sometimes it makes for a compelling bad guy.
But still, he is overly insistent, so to imply the deeply personal nature of what she was thinking about, she responds, she'll tell him if he tells her about Vesper. He pauses and looks at her, asking if that's why they're here. Swan says Vesper's buried at the Acropolis, but Bond knows where she's buried. Swan wants Bond to move on from Vesper completely if they're to have a future, which is fair.
That's completely fair. And if he had really moved on, he'd stop ordering the drink.
Bond says he left her behind a long time ago, and that's him deflecting with half-truths. Physically, yes, but the most you ever got over this lost love was a quantum of solace, an iota, the smallest measurable amount of growth and healing. I've heard some people complain that he should have been over Vesper by now, but he's never done anything to get over it at all. Just push forward to drown out the pain. His behavior and reactions, like these, to just her name, ensures he won't move on completely.
I mean, the closest he got was watching Madeline's dad die.
And he still looked away.
And he still looked away, right?
She wants Bond to go to Vesper's grave and forgive her. Forgive himself. Like everyone's tried to tell him to do his whole life now. Repeated words, shared by a lot of friends and most on their deathbeds. Swan wants him to move forward and prove she can share her secrets with him. When the porter showed them their rooms and papers were falling in gentle flames around them, it was explained that ill memories of the past are written down and burned for a better future. So here she writes, "The Masked Man" in French, and burns it.
The Masked Man. The Lone Ranger?
It was actually Leonardo DiCaprio, the man in the iron mask.
The Man in the Iron Mask.
She's gorgeous. And, as I said, will be way more fleshed out in this film. Leia is an amazing actress, actually. Their chemistry is way better in this film as well. Some people love to say Ana de Armas had more charisma in 10 minutes, but that's not true. Ana just got to play a character that herself described as bubbly and irresponsible, while Leia has to be broken and traumatized while somehow dealing with it and forging ahead better than Bond and being a mom. She's very smart and incredibly mentally strong in this. Mentally, she's stronger than Bond has ever been. He just run into work or jump in a bottle rather than deal with actual grief.
That's pretty much all he does.
Fading to the next morning, Bond writes his past message down and kisses Swan, telling her he's off to do it. Then she's going to tell him where they're going next. To which she teases, "Home." Bond crosses the edited end viaduct from the skyline establishing shots. This is the real-life Ponte Aqueducto Sol Torrente, Gravina, on the western edge of Gravina in Puglia. On the other side is a cemetery. This was a set, or rather two, one built alongside Matera and another alongside this viaduct in Puglia. I don't know why, but Vesper's family is buried here, and so she is too. Holy shit, Vesper was 23? Yeah, man, time to move on. I mean, she was going to be annoying after a year tops, being generous.
Being generous? She's only 23? What the fuck did you guys have in common even?
She had big tits. All jokes aside, this is a tender moment, and the film pays it the respect, time, and weight it deserves. The music is gorgeous and touching. Bond looks like he's trying to figure out what to think, much less have the strength to think it. It's like he said in Spectre, he never allowed himself a thought. But he does speak, telling Vesper he misses her, before burning the paper that he wrote, "Forgive me," on. He drops the flaming stationery, but something catches his eye among the flowers laid at the tomb. A card with the Spectre logo. And for a top-secret organization that not even MI6 knew about at one point, they have excellent branding. Who does their marketing, or did they kill him after he handed out invoices?
Right? They do. They have great marketing, because they're fucking everywhere.
Bond looks confused by Spectre's attempt at a free lunch, but then has an "oh shit" moment, just as we hear a beep and a loud blast. The tomb explodes, and I mean explodes, with pieces ejecting across the fucking valley. That's a good chunk of C4. Rip James, again. Should have called this movie No Time to Live.
No Time to Live. Concussion Protocol.
What the fuck? How the hell did he live that?
Well, let's say the blast wasn't a directed blast.
No. Falls without parachutes in Quantum. Fucking falls off of bridges in Skyfall. He has his balls smashed in Casino, but he has a kid here. Spoiler. Is Spectre the least egregious in at least one sin? Far out. Bond's bells are rung. He takes off back toward the hotel and makes it back halfway across the pont before seeing the people who led him to Vesper's grave running away smiling. When a 1994 Maserati Quattroporte comes behind Bond firing, Bond ducks behind some odd but convenient jutting stones that they definitely added for this bit.
Because there's no way to survive otherwise.
It's like, why would that be there on the bridge that people drive on? It just seems like a good way to cause an accident.
It seems like the best way to cause an accident, Matthew.
It would never be there on that bridge. When the Maserati jumps it, and Bond James bolts for the other side of the bridge, but he's cut off by a goon named Primo, or Cyclops, for his horrible fake eye.
Is that a fake eye?
Primo is played by Dali Bensala and is riding a 2019 Triumph Scrambler 1200. The goon squad pincers Bond and closes in, firing. Bond grabs a cable of some kind that runs along the bridge for some reason. They also added this to the real bridge, but it lets him leap off in a crazy stunt that's part bungee jump, part Tarzan swing.
Mostly Tarzan swing.
Thank God for superior grip strength and pure luck.
You mean superior grip strength with that weakened shoulder that he was shot in?
But he slams into the wall and floor of the lower level and runs through the doors. Primo takes after, and Bond emerges in front of the goon. Bond full sprints with no hesitation and cross-bodies Primo off the Triumph. They struggle for Primo's PMX and have a hand-to-hand scuffle. This fight is actually kind of low-key awesome. The hits have impact and look like real punches. The camera is up close and dynamic to involve the audience better than in Quantum of Solace.
The fight choreography is on point in this one. Once again, I mean, it fluctuates from movie to movie, but this one, the fights are serious in this, and all of them. The choreography is pretty good.
Bond quickly beats Primo's ass and chokes him out with a clothesline. Primo says, "Regards from Blofeld," and repeats that Swan is a daughter of Spectre, before Bond slams Primo's head into the stone wall, knocking him out and knocking out the fake eye, which opens to reveal some gadgetry. It appears to at least have a camera.
Definitely looks like it has a camera.
But no time for that either. Bond steals the Triumph and tears off through the town, jumping up the narrow Via Spartivento steps onto a higher road. He's then blocked by a religious procession, so he evades it with one of the film's most spectacular moments, riding up the side of a classical arch and making a breathtaking jump onto Piazza Duomo, in front of the Cathedral of Matera.
They had to douse the streets with about 8,000 gallons of soda pop to make them sticky enough for the motorcycles to have good traction for these stunts.
This stunt was performed for real. That was a real jump on location. But a curved wooden ramp was built to launch the stunt rider that was digitally replaced by that ancient-looking arch. Still bloody awesome.
Super awesome.
Bond arrives at his hotel and ditches the bike. This time filmed at the entrance to Albergo Palazzo Visconti, the third and final location of this hotel. Apparently Swan asked the porters to bring their bags down already, and this is all just a little much for Bond. She convinced him to go there, and there was a bomb. Primo's words, daughter of Spectre. Now the bags being down just seems a little too sus for him. Anything off would be amplified.
Well, of course. The dude is a spy. He's trained not to trust people, and he was just blown up. He's concussed. He's not even thinking clearly.
He stands in the room, battered and dirty, and says, "You're right. Letting go is hard." The last time he left it all behind him, thought he could give up his armor and have a life with a girl. She betrayed him, and now he thinks it's happening again. You only make the same mistake twice, Mr. Bond.
Yeah, you only make the same mistake twice.
Swan genuinely wants to know what happened to Bond, but he thinks she set him up. And yeah, I mean, what's the alternative? Think about it. Blofeld paid those two villagers to sit in that cemetery with a photo of Bond and a detonator? And what, Primo and co were just also on retainer in case Bond shows up to Vesper's grave one day 15 years later? Which is literally the explanation Blofeld gives.
Literally the explanation Blofeld gives. I knew you couldn't resist.
What?
Eventually you'd go to the grave.
She asks if he's okay, and he grabs her, shaking her violently, screaming, "How did they know I was here?" She sobs that she didn't do anything. The phone starts ringing, and Bond just grabs her and walks out, saying they're leaving. Outside, they enter the DB5, and she is shrunken back into the door, saying there's something she needs to tell him, and he bets there is, screeching off.
This is the point where she tells him, spoilers, that she's pregnant.
This is the point where she was trying to, 100%.
Yeah.
They're chased by goons almost immediately, and Swan's phone rings. Bond demands she answer it. She pulls out the phone, and the screen glitches to a Spectre logo somehow. Blofeld says through the phone that Swan's father would be so proud. And okay, guy, that was a little much. Come on, that was a little sus. This feels like obvious framing to everyone but Bond.
Yeah. It is obvious framing to everyone but Bond. But again, he was just blown up.
He's vulnerable and trained his whole life to be paranoid. Conditioned.
He's concussed. He's not thinking clearly. The woman he loves has just apparently betrayed him.
Concussed. I'd be amazed if he doesn't have internal bleeding.
I would be amazed if there's not a rib or two broken.
Jesus, he is Superman. They're being chased by two 2016 Jaguar XFSs. And another Triumph, by the way. Still, Swan tries to reason with simple logic, asking Bond why would she betray him. And he just locks his mind, saying, "We all have our secrets. We just didn't get to yours yet." In this moment, he's sold himself that no one really changes, that nothing does. And you can literally see Swan's heartbreak in real time. And again, perfectly acted. Just not a spunky sex doll. Sorry.
Perfectly acted, yes. That was the moment he decided that, you're done. Regardless of what happens, you're done.
Some low-level Spectre goons call some random shepherds and have them walk out their urban flock to block the roads. Bond drops mines and blows up some goon cars when he drifts around a corner and almost hits the flock. So he flips that bitch on a dime and heads back through the town. And ouch, the Aston, man, cutting some tight corners there.
Ooh, that DB5 is so boss. This is the best use of that car in the entirety of the franchise. This is it right here. This is what I've waited for my entire life to see that car do. Blowing shit up.
Swan begs him to listen when they're rammed by a rover, T-boned on Swan's side in front of Chiesa di San Giovanni Battista. It looks cool on screen, but no. This piazza is not overlooked by a bell tower. That's just another digital addition. The DB5 is surrounded and starts taking heavy fire. Swan is panicking and Bond doesn't flinch. The DB armor is absorbing everything. Magic shit. So Blofeld said in his fake message that her being part of the plan came with her willing sacrifice. But she is terrified to die here, and it should be another tip to Bond. But Bond is blinded by fear and the rage of betrayal, forcing her to feel his fear. Stalling here is a test of her loyalty, an assertion of his dominance, and emotionally irrational.
All three of those things. It is emotionally irrational. It is a kind of an assertion of dominance, and it's definitely a test.
Primo is blasting her window point blank, and she is screaming, begging, pleading, "James, please do something." Why would this be her reaction? If she wanted him in this trap, she's begging him to get them out of it. He can't fully believe her, but he does enough to soften and say, "Okay," hitting the miniguns and lighting everyone up while doing donuts. Anyone not in cover is shot, and Bond hits the smoke screen for good measure. The score is beyond fantastic. The Bond theme is worked perfectly into moments and threaded into other beats. They take off again, and we cut to them racing back to the coastal town, shot at the town of Sapri again. Bond drives to a train station and pulls Swan to the train. He grabs her one more time. She puts her arm around him, trembling. He makes a broken but resigned face, and she asks if this is it. "This is it," he whispers back, and she cries. He shoves her onto the train, and she can barely stand. Trying to regain some composure, she turns, asking how will she know if he's okay. And he looks at her, dead, ice cold, and says, "You won't. You'll never see me again." She struggles for breath, and as the doors close, you see her grab her stomach. It's a microsecond detail that I missed in theaters the first time. Remember in the car, she had something to tell him? And now, broken-hearted, watching her love leave her and coldly saying she'll never see him again, she grabs her stomach because she already knows she's pregnant.
Yeah, in that moment, she knows that the life that she had imagined for herself has just vanished in a heartbeat.
And nothing but hard times are ahead.
And from her perspective, it happened in the span of a drive to the train station.
A traumatic drive that almost got her killed.
Yeah.
The pain on this girl's face. Give Leia her flowers, people.
Yeah.
As the train starts, She races further and further back to not lose sight of Bond until she can't, and he's gone. They had all the time in the world, and now they don't have anything because Bond couldn't fully trust that people can change. We hear the opening to Billie Eilish's No Time to Die and watch Bond turn his back on Swan, watch her fall ever further into decimation, and so ends the longest pre-title ever.
Is this the longest pre-title ever? It fucking hell is the longest pre-title ever. At some point during this, you're like, wasn't there supposed to be a song at the beginning?
The Dr. No dots pop up and take us to the title. I mean, full Dr. No dots. There's also smoky blues, kaleidoscopes, cracked ice, Romanesque statues with tridents and Union Jack shields. There's Honor Majesty's Secret Service imagery everywhere in this movie, but these titles are almost a tip to all the titles before it.
They were a decent homage to all the titles before it.
They're an amazing homage to all the titles before it.
Oh, yeah.
I love the bit of the frost creeping up the statue that bleeds, with the blood also freezing. Everything is well lit. The colors pop. These titles are absolutely gorgeous. The blood colors the flag on the shield. The safety the British government provides its citizens is paid for in blood, and always has been.
Always will be. The use of colors and shapes and lines to form the metaphors of the entire movie, if you pay attention to the title sequence. They don't do this very well very often, but when they do, they nail that shit.
When they nail the symbolism in their title sequence, it's usually a banger. Craig's title sequence, Giant Eye, this time made of gears and mechanics. Inside the clockwork is Bond and Swan in Casino Royale type silhouette, standing on the heart-shaped end of dials, spinning away from each other as the machine turns. Co-producers Daniel Craig, Andrew Noakes, and David Pope. The DB5 sinks away into the abyss, and the headlights flicker away, framed by all the time they could have had. The statue, the DB5, the Walther, the Trident, all sucked into the sands of time. Supervising art director Chris Lowe, set decor Veronique Mellery, falling time, double helix gunfire, Billy's song Weeping. Associate producer Greg Wilson, visual effects supervisor Charlie Noble, main titles by Danny Kleinman, special effects Chris Corbold, Oliver Schneider, and Lee Morrison on stunts. Second unit Alex Witt, edited by Tom Cross and Elliot Graham. Linus Sandgren on cinematography. Music by Hans fucking Zimmer. Wow.
Yes, baby. It's the Zimmer man.
Holy shit. No wonder the score was on point.
Right? I mean, the score started out magnificently, and then when I saw Hans Zimmer's name, I was like, oh, well, that explains it.
No Time to Die, performed by Billie Eilish, written by her and her brother. It feels as if she was allowed to see the pre-title sequence only and wrote a song from Bond's perspective. But it actually also works as Swan's perspective for the whole film as well. And the song grew on me big time. At the age of 18, Eilish is the youngest artist to record a Bond theme song, and the third in a row to win an Oscar for one.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about this Billie Eilish song for a second here. I'm old, and I don't normally go for pop music, but I do like me some Billie Eilish. I don't know what it is about her and her music, but I enjoy it. It's not quite poppy.
There's a darkness to her music that I love.
Yeah, it's kind of dark and broody. So I like it. And this song is no different. I like this song better than I like Skyfall, and certainly better than I like Sam Smith's song. It was good. She definitely understood the assignment, and she's got a nice smoky voice, that cocktail lounge, blue dress.
Until it's time to hit that long high note.
Right, until, I mean, like, yeah.
It's like she's got it, but she's just whispering seductively to you the way she sings until it's time to belt.
Right, yeah.
And it was definitely a Bond song. Musically, like melody-wise, it was one of the most amazing Bond songs, period.
Right, yeah, hands down. I did dig this song. As far as all the newer songs, this was hands down probably the best one for me.
Written by Purvis and Wade, with the director of this film and Phoebe fucking Waller-Bridge. The director and her are renowned for their story crafting and dialogue, respectively. The imagery breaks from this film again and into another homage, with Honor Majesty's Secret Service and Thunderball being obvious hits here. Produced by Mike Wilson and Babs Brock, directed by Kerry Joji, Fukunaga.
Hmm.
Christopher Nolan ruled himself out to direct, and Denis Villeneuve decided against the role due to his commitments to Dune. Danny Boyle was attached and got a little while in before bowing out due to creative differences on the script. He wanted to do a young Bond story at the end of Craig's run. What the fuck?
Yeah, no, that doesn't work because we've already established he's old.
So they hired the director of True Detective's first season, of Beasts of No Nation, a godlike director.
Somebody who's pretty decent at their job.
Fukunaga. This film is the first in the series to have sequences shot with 65mm IMAX film cameras. Fukunaga and Sangren pushed for using film over digital to enhance the look of the film.
Anyone who insists on using film is all right in my book.
We open 5 years later to an establishing shot of London with Spectre agents abseiling down the side of a glossy high-rise. This is a bioweapons development lab from which, with the help of treacherous inside man Valdo Uberchev, played by David Densick, they steal the mysterious, though beautifully lit, MacGuffin of the film, the Heracles Project. Amazing camera work and framing in this bit. It's feeling a lot more like Skyfall than Mendes could do with Spectre.
Definitely more Skyfall than Spectre.
They laser cut their way in, and the camera turns with them. We then cut to Oberchev being pranked by his coworkers and threatening them with Ebola tea.
He didn't threaten it with he did threaten it with Ebola tea, but he threatened to carry that shit out until they sweat blood out of their faces. Like, goddamn, that's like
He got graphic.
full-blown Ebola. You were done, Ebola.
He gets a call from Safin saying Spectre's coming. Don't stop them. Spectre thinks they need Oberchev, so he'll be okay. Just give them what they want. He's told to download files on a flash drive and swallow it. And then he covers, "Yes, animals I like," as awkwardly as possible, then swallows it as the lights go out.
Right. That was pretty awkward.
It's because he's a psychopath and does not understand how to be a human.
Maybe.
It is why.
Yeah.
Think about it. His idea of a perfectly fine response to being pranked on a soup label was to graphically threaten him with an Ebola death.
Is to give some people Ebola.
Obviously, he just does not know how to human.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair.
The Spectre goons breach and rush in, murdering everyone. They're led by Primo. Primo demands the Heracles weapon, and we see it's nanobots again.
It's always been nanobots, Matthew. Just like it's always been Blofeld.
They set charges and strap parachutes, dropping some super bomb that shoots out electromagnets as it falls down an elevator shaft, punching out the floor. The goons cover the dock in magnets and then push him with the magnets, arresting his fall. Very sci-fi.
Super sci-fi. If you have money for this kind of tech, why not just build your own nanobots?
Listen, man, R&D into magnets, not the same as fucking world-killing nanobots, okay? We needed a few more million than we had. It was cheaper to develop the magnets and steal that. They made it already.
Maybe if we just skip the magnets.
The entire Russian program to develop a nuclear bomb explains the magnets over just making the Heracles. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Fair.
They blow the high-rise, and we cut to Moneypenny. Harris said of her character that Moneypenny has grown up somewhat. She still has a soft spot for Bond that's never going to go. But she's an independent woman with her own life.
And a little bit chunkier booty.
She heads into M's office, but he's already seen the CCTV. Moneypenny asks M what Heracles is, that the lab wasn't on the books. M sweats. No, it's not. He says there was a gas leak. He'll handle it. He's adamant. He's acting responsible somehow for this and asking for 007. We cut to Bond, sailing off the coast of Jamaica. Fittingly, Bond went to retire where Fleming did. Bond is just living out his life here, though, going through the motions. His pain, distrust, and circumstances, his occupation in life, has just become routine. He's just passing by as this numb constant in an evolving world. And even in Fleming's later novels, that's how he remained. There was no finality to it all, just this cyclic purgatory that oddly mirrors the franchise itself, constantly doing the same things and starting over.
Yeah.
With nothing really gained until Craig's iteration. If we're being meta about the franchise.
Well, yeah, because this was the first iteration that actually had continuity and character growth.
The harpoon gun, the Crab Key-esque location are more homage here. Bond's waterfront home was built and subsequently dismantled on a secluded private beach called Cocoa Walk Bay. Arriving, he finds a cigar butt in his home. Delectado, the cigars from Die Another Day.
Can we talk about how in 25 plus movies this guy went from not checking behind corners to noticing the tiniest mote of cigar ash on his step?
I think that's what happens when you level all the way up to 100 on agent skill.
I think that's what happens when you level all the way up to 100.
And I think that's why we were always upset about past Bonds, is they never seem to learn
Right.
and grow like that. They expand on their skill with their wisdom and experience.
That's right.
Like a human or a good agent.
Oh, this Bond is good. Sharp.
This Bond is good. No, he's maxed out his skill levels. You can't fuck with this guy.
You can't fuck with this. You don't need to check his corners because he saw your cigarette ash.
Bond drives off in his 77 Land Rover 88 and pins Felix's Toyota Corolla. Jeffrey Wright returns, becoming the first person to play Felix 3 times.
Boom, boom. And the best Felix.
He has a partner, too. CIA agent Logan Ash, played by Billy Magnuson.
Yeah. He's immediately not likable, which means Billy Magnuson did an awesome job playing this character.
Oh, yeah, he did. He's so punchable. And you got to give the actor credit for that, because he's meant to be.
Right, because he's meant to be.
They go to a club and drink. Bond and Felix gamble and talk shop. Felix wants to recruit the retired Bond to go to Cuba and find Ubrachev. Ubru's face pinged there, and their contacts say Spectre is gathering there also. Felix is trying to talk Bond into this, but through brotherly pushing. The other guy is schmarmy and fake. He sticks out so obviously, even the locals punk him out for it.
I like how this bar has more spooks in it than any other bar in the neighborhood.
Dude, there's at least 4. At least.
I would believe that 007 there has got backup as well.
Yeah, very by the book. So probably.
Very by the book, so probably backup.
Bond goes for another round and bumps into a woman named Nomi, played by Lashana Lynch. She says hi, and Bond keeps going. Spoiler, she's the new 007 that Carter was just talking about. She's got eyes on him, but more importantly, she isn't named Janessa Bond, so it isn't a code name for the billionth time.
It isn't a code name for the billionth time. 007 is the code name.
At the bar, Felix joins Bond for talk away from the smiling Boy Scout. The Boy Scout's been assigned to Felix, but still, Felix needs Bond's help. Bond is bitterly resistant. Felix points out Bond's dilemma in the changing world. Hard to tell bad from good, and good from bad anymore. Bond finishes his drink and leaves Felix hanging, and we see Primo is also slinking around.
Primo. I keep going, who's Primo? Oh, Cyclops. Sorry. He's Cyclops in my brain.
I hate that name. Stupid.
I know. It's not a Cyclops if the eye isn't in the middle of his head.
Outside, Bond's rover won't start, so Nomi picks him up on a Vespa and takes him home. She says she's a diver, and she has a thing for old wrecks. Bond takes her and her fake accent inside his home and pours a drink, but she lives up to her code number by going straight to the bedroom.
Right. I think that goes with being a 007.
But she drops her wig and her accent. He knows she killed his car and is here from London. He demands respect and what she's doing here. He learns she's a 00 and tells her the world doesn't change very much. But he would say that, here, in this heavenly bubble, a man with nothing to live for and time to kill.
It's funny the way she puts that. You have nothing but time to kill.
That's all he's doing with his time.
Yeah, he's killing it.
That's a big point of this movie. That's the point of this movie.
Yeah.
She warns him to stay off the job Felix offered, and if he gets in her way, she'll kneecap him.
In his good knee.
She also rubs in that she has his number, just to be mean, joking he must have thought they'd retire it like a jersey number. I don't hate this character. I know a lot of people balked at a black female with a code number. But for me, I just hate how she's the weakest written character in the entire movie. That feels shoehorned in to bluntly serve narrative beats to the audience and to make Bond look superior.
Yeah, pretty much simply to make Bond look superior.
We cut to M, telling Q to salvage what he can from Uberchev's computer when his phone rings. 007 had given Bond her phone, and Bond has called M. Holy shit, 2020 Aston Martin Valhalla looking like a spaceship and F1 racer had a baby.
That's funny. I was thinking it looks like the McLaren and F1 had a baby with all British racing lines.
Bond calls him out on having Uberchev on payroll. He knows the government is deep in it and won't work with the Americans for it. He scolds M, asking him what he's done, and M just hangs up.
Well, that's a dead giveaway right there.
M demands Q bring up the live feed on Blofeld in his cell, and Blofeld just sits talking to himself, and they chalk it up to insanity.
Well, if you spent all day in your room talking to yourself...
Solitary confinement.
Right. Maybe you are a little crazy.
I can't believe there's not anyone listening to him, though.
Right. Well, they're recording him, right?
They better be, or they're dumb, but, I mean, come on.
I can't believe there isn't anybody who's, like, not smart enough to be like, it really seems like he's talking to somebody.
It really feels like he's, like, giving orders.
Right?
And I mean, sometimes literally, it sounds like he's planning a party and he just ordered, like, a bunch of balloons.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe we should search his cell one more time. Let's search him.
We then cut back to Bond calling Felix, telling him that he's in. Felix says, "Great, I have a girl I want you to meet." Bond sails to Cuba, and not only does Nomi fly over him, but somehow ends up arriving at the same time, so I guess she did laps.
She did laps.
She flew over him. He's in a sailboat.
Yes, and she landed. She had some drinks.
How is he getting on the dock before her? She's getting out of her plane, looking at him with her bags like, "What up? I'm here too, bitch." What?
She waited for him to get there.
I gotta let him see me.
She sat there in the plane waiting. That's right.
Unsurprisingly, there's no filming in the real Cuba, apart from that establishing aerial shot of Santiago Harbor, which looks like it might have been captured by a second unit guerrilla style. So instead, it's shot partly in Jamaica, and mostly on a giant set on Pinewood that looks like an entire city block.
They did an excellent job because just like last time they were in Cuba, when they weren't in Cuba, it looked a lot like Cuba.
This, to me, once you know it's a set, you can't unsee it. It looks so much like a set.
It is very setty.
It looks like those neighborhoods and commercials.
Right? Especially the way they film it, like all the up angles at the roofs and tops of buildings and everything like that. Not too much street level.
You get inside framing and blocking outside.
Yes, right.
Inside an open corner bar, Bond approaches a woman, played by Ana de Armas, who was requested for the film personally by Bond.
Were they dating or something?
Nah, he worked with her in Knives Out and thought she was amazing. And she is.
She is.
She's fucking awesome.
Super awesome.
She's, in my opinion, the hottest thing to ever even grace a Bond movie, but that's me.
Weren't they talking about another spinoff with another hot Bond girl?
If they did, it didn't get very far.
Well, you know, Babs Broccoli, she only focuses on one thing. I don't think we're ever going to see any type of Bond spinoff.
This character's name is Paloma. She's a brand new field agent, just out of an abbreviated training. She's wearing a navy Michael Lasordo gown with a high slit and tells James he's late. Vamos.
She looks so good, dude.
Goddamn right.
So good.
They had the high slit in the dress so she could kick and move around like she does.
Mm-hmm.
Bond tries for a code phrase, but Paloma ditses out and admits this is her biggest assignment so far. She tries to take his clothes off before realizing what she's doing and just gives him a tux, admitting that she's had 3 weeks training with an odd confidence.
3 weeks training for what, though?
You know, like hand-to-hand combat.
It's like, no, I don't think that was the 3 weeks of training that she had. I'm trying to figure out exactly what they trained her to do.
I think it's supposed to be a meta comment on Ana de Armas's actual abbreviated training for the film. She only had about like 6 weeks. And stellar job. Again.
Mm-hmm.
They step out with Bond and his Tom Ford, and damn, that's clean. That's the best tux since Casino Royale.
Man, that is the best tux since Casino Royale. He looks pretty good this whole movie. Wardrobe did a spectacular job on the last Bond movie.
I agree.
The best these look since the first movie. You're absolutely correct, sir.
They walk into the fictitious El Nido Hotel, where it's a who's who of Spectre. I mean, literally. All of Spectre's ringed players are here to celebrate Blofeld's birthday. And while that might seem way too good to be true, it's because it is. They set a trap for Bond. Mike Wilson cameo in this scene, by the way.
Yes, he did, didn't he? I spotted him this time only because you called it out.
We cut to Primo, forcing Uberchev to scan a DNA signature into the Heracles program. But Obru drops the drive and covers it with his foot, grabbing a different drive from his sock when pretending to retrieve the original. He plugs the second drive in for Heracles, and we see multiple profiles loaded and the weapon armed. Primo takes the weapon and releases it into the aircon system, and we cut back to Bond, noticing all the main Spectre agents are here, and an eyeball on a pillow being passed around in front of people. Paloma scans for an earpiece frequency, and they listen in to Blofeld talking to Spectre members.
Is he talking to Spectre members, or is he talking to James Bond?
It's both. It's Spectre members, but he knows Bond will eventually come in and join listening, and it eventually shifts. But it's like a dramatic reveal. You're listening to him. He's like talking, this is great, look at our achievements, look what we've done. Oh yeah, by the way, welcome, James.
Blofeld.
Paloma makes Uberchev and follows. Bond makes his way to the eye, and we hear Blofeld say, "Here's to the end of his bird, his brother, James Bond." The lights drop, and a spotlight hits Bond in the center of the room. Everyone smiles and backs away, waiting. Primo hits the switch, and nanobots spew from the AC as Blofeld says, "No worries, it's harmless to us. It's a DNA-targeted system." But Uberchev didn't load Bond's profile that Primo gave him. He loaded all of Spectre's.
All of Spectre's.
That bait of having all of us in one location to bring Bond in?
Yeah.
Yeah, that backfired.
Yeah. It would always backfire. You know what? If I was a member of Spectre, I would not have gone to the birthday party.
Fuck him, he's in jail anyways.
I don't like a lot of those people.
We don't need all of us. Think about it. 99% of us is still a good enough trap, right?
Yeah.
Like, one of us being missing isn't going to stop James from being enticed by this.
Right?
It's not the make or break thing.
Shit, 10 of us being missing isn't going to stop James from being there. If most of us are there, he'll be there.
He didn't even say all of us were going to be there. He just said there was a large congregation of us, that we were all gathering here.
This is the second meeting he's crashed. That was a trap, by the way.
The bugs eat these people from the inside, and they drop in very quick but painful deaths, including Vogel from the last film, who returned just to be shuffled off with the rest of Spectre and any other loose ends. We're wrapping this up, baby.
Yep, this is a wrap-up. No loose ends. If you remember a Spectre, you are now dead.
Obru is stoked to see it working correctly. Paloma is stunned. Bond takes Obru down with a serving table, and then he and Paloma get into a gunfight. And she is a badass, too. No hesitation. Nomi rappels from the glass roof and grabs Oberchev before launching back up with him.
Leave it to a 00 to have the gadgets to get you what you need. That was a straight Roger Moore move right there, by the way.
It was Roger Moore move with Pierce Brosnan technology.
Right?
Bond runs up the stairs after her, and Paloma goes off on any goon foolish enough to step to her. She's dual-wielding a PPK and an MP7A1. Nomi shoots 2 grappling anchors out for a zipline between the buildings, but Bond shoots an anchor off the wall, and the 2 swing forcefully into the wall of the far building. They finally paid Bond the respect he deserves in this film, making sure to show his lifetime of training, experience, and skills have brought him to John Wick levels of tactical calm badassery. He kills almost every goon with a casual effortlessness.
With a Batman-esque effortlessness.
Contrasted with the new 007 who is pinned down. They also constantly show Bond outsmarting and outmaneuvering her throughout the film.
Oh, yeah, totally throughout the film. He's the better 007.
Paloma beats 3 dudes with her spent weapon and her high heels. Amazing fight from both of these 2 as they kill the remaining Spectre goons. She does whip kicks, flying drop kicks, and shoots everyone. He shoves some goons over the landing and falls onto them in the bar. He stands and pours them both a drink. They cheers, shoot the liquor, and then stroll out to shoot people. The music hits and the scene is just dripping cool.
It is action-packed, fun comedic beats. It was a great scene. I had a lot of fun with it, and I totally enjoyed the character of Paloma.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I get why people are so taken. I mean, the actress, the character, they're both amazing, and when that works, it's lightning in a bottle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Bond walks out in no cover, with no care in the world, and instantly takes out every goon that's pinning down Nomi. Hope you didn't expect me to take her seriously, movie.
Right?
Paloma is a more badass agent than that 00 with just 3 weeks training. She shoots goons for their 57 Bel Air and then drives it into the platform Oberchev is escaping onto because Nomi is just the worst 00 since they promoted me. Obru falls and Bond grabs him, looking up to Nomi, saying, "Here's my knee."
Here's my knee. All right.
Nah, he tells her he's taking her plane.
Right, yeah.
Because she's a little bitch.
Yeah.
It won't do shit about it.
Can't do shit about it.
Paloma, meanwhile, says this is as far as she goes, and Bond smiles at the natural, saying she was excellent, which she reciprocates while handing him a cigar for Felix.
I enjoyed this section of this movie.
Bond takes Obru to Nomi's Cessna Skywagon and takes off, landing next to a fishing vessel with Felix and Ash aboard. "Thanks, Felix, you walked me into a trap. Spectre's dead. That's wrapped. Don't dwell on it." Just don't worry about it. We're moving on.
Moving on.
Bond sits Oberchev down to exposit about the MacGuffin. Oberchev, at all times in this movie, is a dick to people. He makes awkward, inhuman jokes along with sadistic threats.
He has the confidence of a man who knows he won't be killed.
He has a narcissistic superiority complex, is what he has, much like Safin. They are definitely two peas in a pod.
I guess that's fair.
Regardless, he tries to answer Bond's questions, and Ash gets jumpy. "Thank you, Bond, you've done your mission." He is frantically trying to stop Bond from learning more. Ash screams to stop, and they scream at Ash to shut up. Bond learns about the target switch and demands to know who ordered this and how Blofeld knew he was there. Obru looks at Ash, and they turn to see him sweating bullets and looking on the verge of a psychotic snap. Ash draws, and Felix grabs his arm. Ash shoots Felix in the gut, and Bond dives for Ash.
And now he gets that beating that you wanted to give him since you met him.
They slam each other into the walls of the cabin, punch each other, and Bond draws his gun as Ash smashes a coffee pot over him. Felix falls into the lower deck of the ship. Bond slams Ash's head into a table. There's a lot of back and forth. Hard-hitting, exciting trading of blows. It's very fast, but well-paced. Perfectly shot and brutal.
Doesn't it remind you a lot of the train scene with Red Grant?
Hell yeah, it does.
Hell yeah, it does. But better choreography. It was good. It was a good fight. Again.
It's very similar choreography, actually. I mean, you can say it's much better, but like they're very, very similar.
It was very similar, yeah. Maybe it's better cinematography? I don't know. It's
better cinematography, yes, showing it off. But it felt like they were trying to do a very similarly choreographed fight to that one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Ash kicks Bond against a wall, and they stare at each other for a moment when Obru kicks Ash's Beretta over to him. But Ash is an idiot, honestly. Way too green and cocky and spends way too long realizing what happened and then chuckling about it. So Bond spear tackles his ass into the fucking ceiling.
That was a nice move on Bond's part. Use your environment.
Ash lands next to his weapon and fires at Bond, who dives into the engine room. Ash locks the hatch behind Bond and tells Obru that he's with Safin. Below, Felix says, "I don't know about you, but I got a feeling in my gut that Ash isn't on our side."
Is it just a feeling, Felix?
I got a bullet in my gut that says Ash isn't on your side.
I'm pretty sure it's the bullet.
It's a good dad joke on his way out.
It is a good dad joke on his way out.
Bond takes off his jacket to tend to Felix, while outside, Obru and Ash steal the Cessna after planting a charge on the side of the ship. Back inside, Felix admits this is his last mission. Bond says Paloma gave him a cigar for Felix, and he's gonna smoke it.
Right? He's got to have that last cigar.
God damn it, Felix.
Felix knows he's a goner right now. And Bond can't really save him.
Felix knows he's gone, and Bond doesn't want to admit it just yet. He's dragging him.
Mm-hmm.
The charge explodes. The ship is sinking, and Ash flies away, saying, "Shame, I was such a big fan of his." A meta comment about Bond's tactics, probably making him more famous than obscure, while also enforcing that kid-like marking out of a green young man, especially in today's follow culture.
Yeah, especially.
Back on board, Bond grabs Felix, saying, "Come on, they've been in worse." Bond drags Felix through the water. Felix begs Bond to just let him go. He tells Bond to make it worth it. It's a good life. And Bond is again cradling a friend, this time a brother from Langley, who's dying in his arms and using their final moments to try to tell him to let go, to stop blaming the world for everything instead of himself, to value his time, his life, and the people in it. before it's too late. Felix passes and sinks into the water. Bond dives and watches him fade away, just like Vesper, his real brother. The music is amazing here. It's somber yet suspenseful.
The score throughout this whole movie is a banger. This was a very poignant scene, the death of Felix for me. He was the best Felix. Let's be honest. He was the best Felix, and I'm not just saying that because he was black.
No, they never say never again Felix was black. He wasn't the best.
No, exactly. I forgot about that.
The ship is sinking fast. Bond escapes the ship and swims for the surface, reaching the auto life raft. He sits until the next morning, staring at the cigar when a container ship bellows. Craig sustained an ankle injury while filming in Jamaica and subsequently underwent surgery, which stalled production.
Definitely putting blood, sweat, and tears into this last film.
In June 2019, production was further interrupted when a controlled explosion damaged the 007 stage at Pinewood and left a crew member with minor injuries.
They blew up a studio?
Yep.
Yeah.
We cut back to London, where Bond retrieves his old V8 Vantage, identical to the one seen in The Living Daylights, down to the registration plates, out of storage in the railway arches on Centaur Street, with the British Bulldog shown in the storage unit as well.
Oh, nice touch for Mom.
Bond speeds off to Whitehall and pulls into the actual Ministry of Defense. He walks in and has to check in, giving up the Bond, James Bond bit in a new sarcastic way.
Oh, I love it. That dude looks at him like, I don't know who the fuck you are. Is that supposed to mean something to me?
Upstairs, Moneypenny flicks Bond's visitor badge, asking how retirement is, and Nomi runs up with a shook face to insert herself in the situation. Her and Bond are testy and square off at all times.
Well, yeah, she was pretty much a braggadocious about don't come after me or my job, and here he is.
She said, get my way, I'll kneecap you, and then he schooled her. Inside M's office, M says, yeah, there were some sorry faces when you left, but you fell so far off the grid, what did you expect? M is pissed Bond worked for the CIA, and Bond says, well, they just ask so nicely. M tries to cast blame, but Bond says, this is your mess. You're into something a hair's breadth away from villainy, and you even have a henchwoman out here cleaning your mess. 'Cause Nomi was never really meant to be Bond's replacement, so calm down, neckbeards.
Right?
She's M's hench.
M's hench. M's go-to. Yes.
Out there cleaning up his mess.
Yep.
Bond catches M up on Cuba, and that his weapon is out there, and no one knows who has it now. M says he doesn't answer to Bond or Felix Leiter. Perhaps because he's dead.
Ooh, gut punch.
M has the good sense to apologize before saying anything else.
The one thing I like about Ray Fiennes' M is he's a gentleman above everything.
The argument gets heated again about M's role in creating this weapon, hiding it, having security breaches in personnel, and trying to cover it all up. Bond calls out how much liquor M is consuming during this as well.
Which is kind of a cheap shot from Bond. Yeah, he's drinking a lot, but that's kind of the pot calling the kettle black.
But it does take one to know one.
It does take one to know one, 100%.
M dismisses Bond, and Bond leaves Moneypenny's office with the old toss trick. But this time, it's his visitor badge. Into the trash can, no look.
No look. I love the callback to the old classic hat toss trick.
With a twist.
With a twist.
M tells Nomi to go to Belmarsh and scan Blofeld and his cell. Moneypenny asks Bond what he's doing for dinner, and we cut to Q, slicing cucumbers.
Aw, Q is so cute. No,
That's staying.
I liked him at first, but by the end of this movie, that kind of wears off.
My opinion about Q is he was really fun in Skyfall, but his character was stupid and allowed stupid things to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And in Spectre, they tried to offset that by making him tactically intelligent, more computer savvy and security savvy. But he just came with like way more of an awkward personality with it. The way he would double over laughing at his own jokes while everyone just stared at him. It was so weird and corny. And in this one, he's somewhere in between both of those. Like, they almost got his character right finally for this last one, but it was just too little too late. And they also did a lot of other things in this movie that just really ruined the character for me.
He looked like a guy who had imposter syndrome.
We see Q, looking like a grown-up finally. His two cats, and his disappointed face when he sees Eve and James on his ring cam. Q has a date coming over, and Bond's drinking Q's wine. What a dick.
What a real dick. I don't even think he likes wine.
If there's alcohol in it, like at the end of the day.
At the end of the day, I guess, if there's liquor.
I could see Bond chugging vanilla extract.
Oh, Jesus.
Q is gay, by the way. Does it matter? Nope.
Dope.
Does it add anything? Nope.
Not a lick.
Ben Whishaw doesn't even like the angle. But whatever.
Oh, he didn't like the angle? I thought he was really gay.
I don't care. But I just know that he didn't like this for the character, at least the way they did it. Mostly because it doesn't matter and it adds nothing.
Kind of like Sulu in the new Star Trek. It should add to the story.
Can it matter at least a little bit?
It should add to the story.
Bond gives him the flash drive he took from Uberchev, and Q loads it into a sandbox laptop because he learned from the most moronic mistake ever.
It's good to see that he's grown and learned a couple of lessons since he just plugged a random device into a hard drive.
With great stubble comes great fucking common sense. They load up the DNA profiles and other files that complete the info Q took from Ober's hard drive. They learn there's thousands, if not millions, of DNA profiles in the system already. Eve admits that there's been a lot of data breaches in DNA firms lately. Thanks, 23andMe.
Right? All of those people on Ancestry.com.
You're about to get Heracles. Bond needs to see Blofeld, but he only speaks to his psychiatrist. Bond asks who that is, and we cut to Swan going into her office at Carlton House Terrace to see a new patient. And it turns out to be Rami Malek's Safin, twirling a strand of little Maddie's hair before gently tucking it into a cloth for safekeeping as an adult Swan walks in.
I love Rami Malek in this role. He's good. He's a good actor. I like Rami Malek a lot.
Very underrated villain, in my opinion.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I really want to know how old Swan was when he came in the beginning and how old he was. These actors are 4 years apart in real life. Maybe Swan was 10 and he was 14. And now she's in her 30s and he's supposed to be in his 40s. For me, that's the only way this works.
Yeah. That's the only way that this works.
Take away 2 years from her and add 2 years to him, and that would be that 8-year gap from a 10 and an 18-year-old and make that scene work.
That would make it work.
We literally are supposed to believe much wilder age gaps in actors and characters all the time in movies, so.
Yeah, I don't mind it.
She tries to start the session. He acts like he hasn't been around a human being in years. He says weird shit like saving someone's life means they belong to you forever. He also has a box he gives her with the shattered no mask inside.
Yeah, if he wasn't giving off creepy vibes right away.
Well, she knows who he is now.
Yeah, she definitely knows by the end of the session, for sure.
I never forgot your eyes under the ice. Swan is trembling. What do you want? Just a favor. You owe me. You murdered my mother, and your father killed my entire family. He tells her he needs her to spray herself with Heracles before going to see Blofeld. It's harmless to her, he says. Okay, first off, wouldn't these stay, forever in people? Eventually spreading to unintended targets anyways. Can't they be reprogrammed with DNA after being told it was harmless to tie up loose ends in cases just like this? Or worse, couldn't these things mutate, essentially? They could have rudimentary but magic Hollywood AI.
Yeah, all of those things are fully plausible, Matthew. The idea of the weapon is genius, but the way they do it is stupid. It's just stupid. Perhaps if I had a little more exposition on what these nanobots were made of, what they were supposed to do exactly,
No, please, no.
No, please, no.
No exposition on the nanobots, please. I feel like that's just a grave they would dig deeper trying.
Yeah.
She refuses, but he threatens to kill the person she loves most. She says she lost everyone she loves most, but they both know that isn't true. We then cut to Bond, meeting with M on the Lower Mall riverfront by Hammersmith Bridge. Bond asks why Swan. M says she's the only shrink Blofeld would talk to. He also says Heracles was meant for good, to be a clean, accurate shot and eliminate collateral damage. But they had to know this would always get out. I mean, everything does. The road to hell is paved with good intentions and nuclear fallout. Now I have become death.
Right? It would be like the next level nuclear bomb.
Bond tells M whoever is doing this wants Blofeld. M defends his choice once more by saying, "You used to be able to look an enemy in the eye, and now they float in the ether." He then shares they found Blofeld communicated through a fake eye that somehow had a perpetual internal power supply and an incredibly powerful yet undetectable Wi-Fi.
Oh, some sort of signal and some sort of power source, totally undetectable,
Magic.
yet powerful enough to last for years?
Maybe he had a charger up his ass. M says we need all the info we can get, and Bond nods. Sir, giving that moment, as Tanner walks up happy to find the rumors of Bond's return accurate. We cut to M's office, and the gang is all here. Bond, M, Tanner, Eve, Nomi, and Q. Nomi informs us people are already dropping from Heracles. Q acts surprised to see Bond, and M tells him to stuff it. He knows Bond is staying with him.
Can we give a shout out to Tanner right quick? I feel that we don't talk about the world's greatest secretary.
I like this Tanner the best as well because he's the most fleshed out.
Yeah.
The original Tanner just felt like a fill-in for the minister.
But this Tanner, he gets shit done.
His character eventually evolved into basically an expo dump, but most of the movies have still done him justice by giving him not only time to shine as a character,
You're right? Yeah.
kind of like the heart of the team.
Yeah, kind of. Right.
He's a really good linchpin character for pushing the plot and the theme of the movie when done right.
The entire narrative of the film. As I said, shout out to Tanner, the world's greatest secretary. He keeps everything going.
Nomi wants to know what Bond's doing there, and Tanner says Bond's been reinstated as a 00. And Nomi only wants to know what number. She's so competitive with him, and he barely registers her, never reacting or giving rise. She won't stop looking at him, and he never pays her a glance. She is not in his league or his thoughts.
No, nope. She is barely a blip on the radar.
She's young, though, and her ego is petty.
I think she's younger than he was when he started.
Yeah, no, she is. She's very young and definitely younger than he was. And he was an asshole. When she's his age, I'm sure she'll be well-seasoned also.
Yeah, of course.
And the actress did amazing. The character was written to further Bond, basically. And that's it. And that's sad.
She's there for fodder for Bond. Basically fridged without being stuck in a fridge.
Step-stooled.
Step-stooled? I like that. That's the new, that'll be the new term. She's been step-stooled. I like it.
M informs us the Heracles is being passed to family members at funerals and killing through shared DNA. Q clarifies Oberchev's modifications have made it to where it's not just individuals or families. They can target entire races and commit genocide.
On a mass scale.
They could wipe out the whole world.
Yeah, oh yeah, easily.
M can no longer rationalize any of this to himself. He has no excuses or reasoning left that can face his rising guilt and fear. He has to inform the PM. He orders Tanner to quarantine the funeral families and Q to hack Blofeld's eye, which they should have already been doing.
I don't understand why this isn't done yet.
Both of those things should have already been in process. Those are reactionary measures, not things you think about in a meeting a few days later.
Absolutely.
He then tells Bond he's got his wish. Go see Blofeld. And Nomi find Oberchev. Bond tells Nomi to find Logan Ash, and you'll find Oberchev.
And it's a little bit personal for Bond to find Ash. But I was wondering, why does it seem like Nomi takes it personally as well?
I don't think she does. I think she just, in the moment when he turns, because she's been glaring at him the whole time, thinking he's in competition with her, and he's really not.
No, he's not.
And the moment they go off on this mission, and she's still like, behind him, and he turns, and the first thing he says is, here's the lead. And when he gives her the lead, it changed everything about her opinion of him. She realized he's not in competition with her. Like, she's in competition with herself. And right then, he proved he'd be a better ally than an enemy. And they're working together. She had a moment of character growth where she went from M's hench to a 00.
Yeah.
And she'll actually be even more tactically effective in the movie after this, too. She won't get pinned down by goons that Bond easily just stands in the open and kills. They'll be far closer to equal from here on out.
That's true as well. Yeah.
This is that moment. She's learning to trust. She's learning to let her guard down. She's learning to work as a team. She's learning to kill her ego and move forward a little bit here. It's the most justice they do this character, this scene.
It is the most justice they do. I don't disagree with you.
We then cut to Swan in the bathroom at Belmarsh, spraying her wrist with that new perfume, Heracles by Obru, Eau de Nanobat. Then cut to Bond, walking to the holding area, with Tanner trying his best to tell Bond to keep composed. Bond rounds the corner and stands down the hall from Swan. He freezes. His heart jumps in his throat. Then he walks forward, smiling casually. Dr. Swan, nice to meet you, holding his hand out that she ignores.
I'm cool, calm, and collected till I see my girlfriend.
Bond and Swan are led into a chamber, and Bond says, must be nice getting to see an old friend so regularly. She says, closer than ever. Obviously, no matter what they implied, Inspector, Safin is the guy she shot as a child now, but she is still slyly referencing what's about to happen.
Right. I want to say she's a lot smarter in this movie than she was in the last movie.
She's trembling, and he notices. They stand at the end of a long, narrow area in which Blofeld is slowly, and I mean slowly, brought out in a pod, in a manner hearkening to Hannibal Lecter.
I would be like, look, can I just go in there? You got him fucking chained to a chair. He's not that dangerous.
No, fuck you and fuck him. The automated system lets the tension build for Swan and the audience. The lighting on Blofeld is masterfully giving us glimpses of him before he retreats back into shadow. The music is heart-stopping. The camera work, a work of art.
This was probably one of the best shots of this entire movie. It was done masterfully.
Swan panics and backs out, asking for the door to be open. Bond grabs her wrist, and she looks at his hand, saying, James, you don't know what this is. Don't make me do this. Knowing full well James will do it for her now.
Yeah.
He grabbed her wrist.
She didn't warn him.
James has the door opened, and Swan leaves. He asks where she'll go, and she says, home. Tanner tells Nomi to leave Bond in there, and Blofeld finally makes it to Bond. Bond says, happy birthday. Nice party in Cuba.
Well, at least he's being cordial to his brother.
How crazy would it be if you told me who did that shit, and I saved your life? My guardian angel, my chaser of lost causes. Blofeld knows James being here is most likely his end, and speaks to such. We then cut to Q, going through Blofeld's eye and Cuba footage. The eye is just like Primo's, and you definitely know whatever Primo saw, Blofeld did. We also see Logan Ash approaching Primo in Cuba on the footage, so we can also assume Primo works for Safin now.
Well, that makes sense. Who did he work for before? Blofeld? I'm pretty sure he always worked for Safin.
No, he worked for Blofeld, and then that's what that scene right there is for us to see. Explain why they just switched the villain, the hench over.
See. Right.
Back with Bond, as Blofeld tells him Swan still loves him, and he broke her heart. Because you think she betrayed you. Bond says she's irrelevant, and Blofeld says, wait till you see what she's hiding. Blofeld tells Bond to come close, and then he admits that Swan had nothing to do with Vesper's grave. It was all him, baby. All this wasted time. The life you could have had. He didn't need to kill Bond. He left him with nothing but an empty world. And he's right, so Bond chokes him for it, spreading the nanobots and killing Blofeld. Bond had 5 years taken from his family, and it'll turn out to be all the time he had left. He also has lost everyone, including now 2 brothers. In a weird way, Blofeld kind of did win. It's at least a draw.
At least a draw. Unless Blofeld's intention was to die watching Bond be miserable. And so you might want to call it a win.
Literally everything. Everything about Bond's life. He's lost everything from his parents. And then after that, Blofeld took everybody else. He took his house. Took all his time with his daughter.
Right.
His family. Took it all. All his time with his family. Because by the time he gets back to him, it's time to die.
His family, yeah.
Blofeld kind of won. I mean, yeah, Blofeld died too, but they both do.
Yeah.
We all do.
Right.
Cutting to Norway, we see Bond driving to Swan's childhood home and stopping at the gate. There's an amazing moment where Bond approaches the exact same way that Safin did, with the exact same blocking and cinematography. Bond walks, gun drawn, and the camera pans over Bond the exact same way from behind, but this time, everything is green.
It's a very nice callback framing to illustrate the similarities between Bond and Safin.
Bond and Safin are true negative mirrors of each other, from their personalities to goals to the way they see and treat Swan. And shots like this emphasize it.
Right.
Bond enters and seeing Swan, puts his gun away. He asks her who gave her the spray. But before she answers, he admits Blofeld said she didn't do it. They note their shared trust issues and wonder if they were fools for even trying. But they wanted to. Bond doesn't know if she wanted him to come, who gave her Heracles, or how long she's been in with them. But he does know that he wanted everything with her.
Oh, yeah. Other than Vesper, this was Bond's real love, and he would do anything for Madeline.
He came here for information, but now all he really wants is for her to know that he has loved her and always will, and only regrets putting her on that train. He's barely holding himself back from the edge of tears, and it's the most touching moment in a Bond film to this point. Sorry, Tracy.
Yeah, I'll give it up over Tracy. And you know how I feel about that movie.
I'm just a little bit more time and story invested in this by this point. Like, I know other people like to blow it off, but sorry.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a whole lot more world building and backstory to this moment.
How much screen time did Lazenby and Rigg have together on OHMSS to build that heartbreak tragedy? How much screen time did they honestly share? Like 10 minutes?
Right. Yeah, right. Definitely not 2 movies.
He comes in to kiss her. She puts up a weak defense. The kiss, the strings swelling. And hey, is that a slinky?
It's slinky, it's slinky.
It's better than bad, it's good.
That'll do.
James looks up to see a 5-year-old named Mathilde, a cute little kid with striking blue eyes. And you immediately know it's his. I mean, Bond does too, but he's molasses about it, thick and slow. The kid is played by Lisa Dorsane. We cut to Tanner telling M they found Ash, and M orders a capture or kill. There's a portrait of Bernard Lee's M in the hallway here.
Is there? I didn't notice. That's dope.
We cut back to Swan telling Bond the girl isn't his. Bond, who was staring at the girl like a magic being appeared in front of him, calls BS. But Swan is adamant she isn't his. And it makes sense why she would say this. Yes, Bond is biologically the father, but he hasn't been around, and given his history and occupation, Swan is not going to let her daughter go through the same shit that she has over and over.
Right.
There's more repeated framing in this scene, calling back to Safin. Downstairs, Swan shows him her dad's panic room. She also shows him her dad's folder on Safin's family. She explains that he was the one who came. She says he's back for revenge. And for her. And she's either the best psychoanalyst ever or read ahead on the script, because he hasn't given her outwardly much to prove that last word part yet, even if it is true.
Yeah, you're right. During their meeting, he only asked her to kill a man.
Yep. We didn't see the end of the meeting, though.
Well, he did kind of say her life was his.
It felt like it was worded to be exactly what we know it was, but also sound like it could have just been like, hey, you owe me a favor, do this. It's ambiguously worded for a reason.
I'm going to say she's the world's best psychotherapist because she saw right through his bullshit. Like, he's coming after me.
Safin's family apparently made dioxin poisons for Spectre, and White killed them with a dinner of their own poison, making Safin's current method actually very poetic. They killed his family with their own poison, and now he kills them with theirs.
That is definitely sociopathic, super genius type shit right there.
It's vindictive as fuck, at least.
At least.
The Safins had an island where they grew poisonous flowers they called the Garden. Blofeld took it over, and it seems like Safin has taken it back. She shows Bond on White's map where the island is. I love how Mr. White was directly involved in 4 of these films, even after he died. This is amazing long-term storytelling, which is something the franchise never used to even attempt, much less nail.
Right? Mr. White was a key figure, and you would have never guessed that from Casino Royale.
Bond tells Q to dig on Safin, his family, and the island. He also requests a plane. There were 1,000 reasons for Bond to find this man, and now she's given him a reason to kill him.
Nice quote.
Cutting to the next morning, Bond spoons Swan when Mathilde wakes them up, saying she's hungry. Bond cooks her eggs, slices an apple, and then stands back like Gordon Ramsay waiting for honest critique from this 5-year-old.
That was kind of funny.
She just says, not bad. The kid speaks French, of course.
I'm sure that's all she speaks.
You know the Sony deal expired because Bond's got a Nokia now.
Yep.
M calls Bond to tell him they found the island in disputed waters between Japan and Russia. It has an old chemical plant, and the Japanese have reported suspicious activity there. They also say Nomi is closing in on Ash and sent Bond Ash's location. But oddly, to Bond, it appears as if Ash is in Norway, near him. He takes a second to realize what's happening, but I would have immediately started getting my family out of there.
Immediately, I wouldn't have taken a second at all.
Swan already told you Safin wants her too? Maybe the "you belong to me if I saved you" line actually did tip her.
Yeah.
Bond throws his family in a Toyota Land Cruiser and guns it. He tells Q to send the plane to the nearby NATO base as his daughter plays with her stuffed bunny. Bond drives them back the way he came to them, along that spectacular causeway, which is the Atlanter Havsveien, or Atlantic Ocean Road. He passes 2 goon Range Rovers who double back and the chase is on.
Da-dun, da-dun.
Bond whips onto a dirt road and they follow. Mathilde is afraid. Swan comforts her, but the goons ram them. Bond shoves one rover off the road and it flips. He slams the other into the mountainside and it flips over them. He keeps speeding off toward a foggy forest and an Augusta Grand drops into frame as Land Rover Defenders and Triumphs jump into the field to join the chase, like they were just waiting there. Bond drives across a stream that he's damn lucky was so shallow.
Right.
He shoots back and forth across the field and over streams until he flips the Defender he couldn't shake.
He's driving through terrain like he's been here thousands of times.
This bit of the chase was filmed on the southern shore of Loch Login in Scotland. Bond darts into the shrouded forest to ditch the choppa, filmed in Swineley Forest, Berkshire.
They did a good job of tying all of those places together to make it look like one solid location.
He drives to the center of the forest and stops the car. He loads his Walther and gives it to Swan. They then head on foot. Bond spots an abandoned shack, and heading there with Mathilde in his arms, a Triumph goon rides up, and before Bond can flinch shield the kid, Swan has capped the dude like, "Get away from her, you prick!"
It seems like she has no qualms about using guns this time.
Mamba Bear, There was less than no hesitation. There was negative hesitation. Bond couldn't flinch faster than she was capping that motherfucker for looking at her daughter like that.
Too true.
Bond leaves them in the old shack with his gun. "Shoot anyone that enters," he says, then kisses Swan and leaves, grabbing the weapons from the fallen goon outside, including a fucking Beretta ARX 160A3 with a 160A1 grenade launcher fitted.
Kinda perfect. I would have looked for more ammo, personally.
He then runs into the fog, firing to draw attention. When a Defender rides by, he pops it with the nade launcher, shooting survivors through the windscreen. Then, he grabs the winch cable from the Defender and pulls it across the trail. A Triumph goon rides into it, and Bond finishes him off.
Bond is pretty cold-blooded in this scene. Very efficient with his killing.
Calculated, casual, cold, surgical.
And lucky.
Another Defender rides up, and Ash leans out, smiling and firing at Bond, who literally does the Samoa Joe walk-away no-sell to Ash's bullets.
Is that what you're calling it? The Samoa Joe no-sell?
You know how like everybody like climbs the top turnbuckle in wrestling and like takes frickin' forever to do it, and the guy's just standing there like, "Oh, please don't jump on me."
Right?
Samoa Joe's thing is, "I'm just gonna casually walk away and let you hit the mat." They chase Bond and flip over a downed log, and Bond lights up their vehicle. Ash crawls out underneath the vehicle, which is unbalanced and leaning against a tree that's straining to stop the vehicle from rolling over. Ash says, "Help me out, brother." I had a brother. His name was Felix Leiter. Bond grabs the wheel well and jerks downward as hard as he can, and the Defender rolls over Ash, who screams like a bitch in the end.
It might be the second cold-bloodedest killing since the car kick off the cliff.
It's somewhere in the list, lower end of the list for me.
Mm-hmm.
Bond then hears the small fire of his Walther, and we cut to Swan expending her ammo on a goon trying to enter, just for Safin to turn the corner after. Bond rushes over, but they're gone. His family is gone. He rushes out in time to see them flown away, and I've never seen him more angry.
Angry, frustrated, hurt. He conveys a lot of emotions in that scene.
Bond walks down the road when Nomi pulls up in her 2018 Aston Martin DBS Superleggera.
God damn, does this thing have all the Astons in it?
The fourth Aston of the film. You can't say they didn't go hard.
They went hard.
She says, "Need a ride?" the same way she did in Jamaica with the fake accent. In the car, she asks about Ash, and Bond says, "Dead." After a pause, he admits they took Swan and her daughter. He asks about his plane, and she says, "Our plane. I'm coming with you."
And
not in a competitive way, in like the touching way. Like she's sorry that his daughter's taken, and he thanks her for coming.
Yeah, that's totally the way she kind of meant it. She didn't know Swan had a daughter.
And I think she immediately put together, with the way he's acting, what it all means, too.
Right.
They speed on to the NATO base, shot at RAF Bryce Norton. She whips the Aston behind the Boeing Globemaster, and they board the plane with Q aboard. M, over laptop, gives the level objectives. Kill Safin, stop Hercules, and rescue the Swans. Also take out all cameras and don't get noticed if you want like full 007.
I love how technology has made it so M doesn't have to put his desk onto a plane.
He wasn't even just a desk. He would build mini offices up there.
Yes, it wasn't just a desk. It was whole offices.
There's a moment that has to happen for what's to come later, but it's still executed with all the cringe. Nomi randomly asks M to give the 007 number back to Bond, and immediately tosses, "It's just a number." M agrees, but in universe, there's no point for this. It's just for fan service now and closure later. Well, not just, as it does help cement that she's now his ally and not his adversary, and is giving up competing with him, especially over a trifle such as a number.
This whole bit of dialogue was forced, character assassinating of one character and unreasoning of the other. Bond doesn't care about his 007 status. He doesn't need a number to be James Bond.
He proved that in Cuba.
Right? And it makes no difference to the plot.
Q, of course, has a watch for Bond, with a limited EMP. Bond's in-peel navy-ribbed army sweater is so dope. But the watch is cool too, I guess.
The sweater's cool.
Q also gives them something called Q-Dar, and more smart blood for some reason. I guess the old stuff wore off.
Oh, and if you expose a nanite to an EMP, it's probably going to not function.
We found a way to cure you, Bond. It's your fucking watch.
Right?
Roll credits. We'll see you next time. Bond will return alive and with his family.
Right?
Thank you, watch.
Right? Like, you just gave him the cure for Hercules.
Son of a bitch.
But nobody thought to think. I mean, Q, you're the quartermaster. You're the fucking scientist. Oh, Jesus.
There's also two comedy bits here, with Q opening drawers of gadgets and opening a tea drawer of pots in China. Bond also quips about not having had a drink in hours, and Nomi goes full Owen Wilson.
Wow.
All jokes aside, if this were real life, I'd give him a drink. No bullshit. At this point, he is what they call a functional alcoholic. His body is more used to having it than not.
Can't have hand trimmers in a gunfight. Give this man some liquor.
What happens if he gets a migraine spike and he immediately doubles over in a gunfight?
Stupid.
Q then unveils the sci-fi glider called Stealthy Bird, and we cut to Safin leading the Swans through his island. How Ken Adamian is this place? Chef fucking kiss.
It is a masterful location. The set is beautiful. It really is. Down from the Zen gardens to just the natural lighting and the openness of the habitat, it's nice.
Safin runs into Oberchev, who gives him a red vial that Safin calls insurance. It's very obviously a vial of Heracles coded to Swan's DNA, and he implies that it came from the strand he was playing with earlier. He threatens Swan with this, and separately threatens the kid. Jesus Christ, what a fucking monster. He's taking pleasure in holding the lives of a 5-year-old and her mom literally in his hand and then rubbing it in both of their faces.
Told you he was a sociopathic super genius.
Safin is the purest form of a narcissist. He knows what's best. He should make life and death choices for the world, own people, or destroy them with malice. Be God. And yet the crazy thing is, to him, he really is the good guy. And so far, it's hard to argue anything he's actually committed besides traumatizing a 5-year-old.
So far,
he's committed murder to avenge his slaughtered family and wiped out the largest organized crime racket with minimal collateral damage. And yeah, it's about to get way worse. But even then, he still thinks he's saving the world, not destroying it. I mean, the man is insane, but he does believe it, and that's how Malick played it.
Did a masterful job.
Like Dominic Green, I didn't like this villain the first time. But like Dominic Green, I now think he's one of the best and most terrifying villains. He's unhinged in a very real-life way. Also, the sleeper toxin is done better here than in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, where that honestly made 0 sense, where it makes like 10% sense here. Fucking nanobots.
Yeah.
Send Chicken Girl back with perfume, and that's gonna fucking do the same thing. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, that made no sense. And this makes a little more sense. You're right.
But still close to none.
Remember, he's wearing the cure on his wrist.
Safin takes them to the Zen garden in his compound, and he takes Mathilde. Swan's heart is in her throat. For any parent, the fear here is palpable. He walks with the child into the garden, and Primo holds Swan back. She's powerless, and he can do anything to the child, and that's his point. Again, he's a fucking monster.
He takes great pleasure in lording the power he has over people's lives.
He takes Mathilde to the dioxin flower and says this makes you do as you're told. You must never misbehave, Mathilde, and neither must your mother. Ever. And he dead stares Swan. He asks the child if she likes it here, and the kid says no. Safin says, you will. I grew up here, and you will too. He has Swan taken away, despite tearful, screaming protest from the mother. Safin takes the child with him. Back with Bond, he and Nomi board the glider and deploy from the Globemaster. They glide down toward the island and hit the water as the glider turns into a submersible. They pull into a World War II-era subpen to enter the facility, with Q flying high above, guiding them. Safin's island is the real-life Kalsoy in the Faroe Islands, part of Denmark, and also gorgeous pinewood sets. Inside, Bond EMPs cameras and door locks.
And nanobots.
Bro, literally, I didn't even think about that until now. Can we let it go? We're leaving it in. We're moving on. He and Nomi work their way in, and Nomi places the QDAR, which sonar maps the whole facility somehow for Q. Working through the facility and past the poison pools, Bond notes the hatch door ceiling. This was an old missile silo. He walks into the lab and fires into the air, causing techs to scatter. Obru is shook. Bond should be at the bottom of the ocean. When Obru cheeses it, Nomi kicks him down, and she and Bond plant charges.
Blow everything up. That's the standard method of what goes on around here. And I do like how Obru, he is shook. He's like, what the fuck? How are you even alive still?
How dare you be able to swim? Obru spoils the movie by saying it's a suicide mission. Bond sees the scope of the Heracles being produced and a simulation they have showing millions and millions killed. They have to destroy everything. But before they can, Safin comes over Tannoy saying, calm your shit, I have the kid, come upstairs and let's talk. Bond gives Nomi the detonator, and she reminds him they don't have enough explosives for the whole facility, and he goes upstairs.
Since when has that ever stopped Bond? Bond always blows up the whole base, even if he only blows up a little part first. All these bases are somehow connected by gas lines, so just blow up a small part, the whole thing will go up.
Then obviously we're not placing these charges in the right spot. We got to find the explosive room.
Right.
There's got to be a tank room, an explosive room, a pipe room, some kind of spot where we need to put these.
Some kind of spot.
We cut to Swan in some Cold War-era Soviet room, under guard, and being forced by Primo to drink a tea, which isn't wise around here.
Yeah, I would not drink shit that guy gave me.
She's sobbing and begging for her daughter. She throws her tea in Primo's eye, grabs his sidearm, and runs for the door, locking it behind her.
Oh, I love the way she used the psychological trick of telling him it would blind him panic would set in as soon as that hit his eye, because he only got one good eye.
It gave her an extra couple seconds on him. It was smart.
You're right. It was smart.
Back with Bond, as he walks up the stairs with his Colt Mark 18 on the sentry goons. They let him pass, and he sees Mathilde being stroked by Safin. He's so fucking creepy, and unlike any villain we've ever had, I believe he'd kill that kid in a heartbeat.
I was wondering why the kid... I know why the kid is still alive, but yes. I would not believe that he would not kill that kid at any moment.
What? Safin has Bond toss his weapon and sit at his Japanese table. Bond tried to comfort the kid, but Safin says, "Fuck that, it's monologue time." James Bond, history of violence, license to kill, vendetta with Blofeld, in love with Swan. I could be staring at my own reflection. We've made slightly different choices, Bond counters. But Safin's delusional. He says they've just adopted different methods for the same goal, that they both kill to keep the world safe. And again, in Safin's mind, this is true. He's just fucking nuts.
Well, yeah, because Bond doesn't kill millions of people to keep the world safe. Holy shit.
Safin says Bond's skills die with his body, but his Heracles footprint will be forever. And then says, and life is all about leaving something behind, as he holds Bond's kid. Safin lays it out simply. Leave Heracles alone, and he'll leave Mathilde alone. Bond hits the narcissist button by telling him he's right. Safin bloody thanks him for it. Chef's kiss.
It is a well-acted scene, and I do love the close-up on Bond's face for the monologue.
Bond continues, we are the same, having everything taken from us as kids. It would have been nice to have had a chance. We all should get a chance. And this is genius. It's a play to Safin's grieving inner child, and for Bond's own kid, now at the same fork they were at as kids when their families were taken. Safin likes playing God, and Bond's appealing to that.
Absolutely, 100%.
But then Bond keeps going, saying Heracles makes the whole world a battlefield, and nobody gets a chance. And if he had Safin in the first half, this is where he loses him. It was a push too far.
Yeah, he was still trying, though, I think, to connect. Maybe somebody out there in the world that Safin loves. Like, think about the ones you love, and that might have pushed him.
Safin only loves himself. That's why he can abandon Swan and her kids so easily.
Right.
Safin goes off on how people don't really want free will. We want predetermination, even if controlled by one man. People want to live blindly and die when they're not looking. They want oblivion, and it's up to men like them to build it for them. So here he is, their invisible god, sneaking under their skin. This is why Safin is actually one of the best Bond villains. His motives, his madness, his capabilities are dangerously real and not cartoonish. Something in your mind dismisses Drax in space with poison spheres to destroy the world. It's fun, but it's cartoonish.
Yeah.
This guy gets under the audience's skin, talking like a real genocidal strongman.
Yeah, he's neither fun nor cartoonish.
Bond points out history hasn't been kind to those who play God. And while that's hard to argue, I'd say it's been worse for those around them.
Yeah, generally it's worse for people around them.
Stalin died, yeah, after millions others did.
Yes.
Hitler died after millions of others did.
Indeed.
Safin says they both eradicate to make the world better. I just tried to be tidier. I want the world to change, and you want it to stay the same. And for better or worse, he is right.
He's right. No, I mean, see, that's the beauty of his plan. It's not a wrong plan. The methodology is wrong.
The math adds up, but it's an equation we never should have even thought about doing in the first place.
Right.
But Bond's also right when he says Safin's just another in a very long line of little angry men. Regardless, the deal stands. Disable the explosives, leave the island, and Bond can take his precious little angel with him. But Swan stays. She belongs to Safin. And Bond can't do that. Bond knows Swan wouldn't want that. And Safin wonders aloud, what mother wouldn't sacrifice herself for her child? And Bond snaps, is that what happened to yours?
Clever play, bring up his mom. I like the psychological battle of wits here for this scene.
This hits a nerve. My mother lay at my feet as I watched her die, Safin says as he grabs Mathilde. Bond screams, wait, wait, wait. I'll do whatever you want. He bows down on the ground, apologizing, and still Safin pushes. Simple choices, Mr. Bond. Like, do you want to die in front of your daughter? Or do you want your daughter to die in front of you? No! Bond begs, on the floor, almost weeping, apologizing profusely. Safin whispers to the girl, Look at your father. This is power. Bond, meanwhile, is just bent over, apologizing, as he pulls a hidden PPK. In half a second, he pops up and one-shots the sentry goons, but Safin drops with Mathilde down a trap door.
Just a little too slow. See, he's getting old. If he was a young Bond, he probably would have made it down that trap door.
Swan appears asking where Mathilde is, and we cut to Safin, walking with his men and carrying the child, who is very sad about dropping her bunny.
Yes, well, she's a child. It's her favorite bunny. She brought it on this whole trip. I'd be sad too.
She bites Safin's hand, and Safin is pissed, but he chuckles, gets low, looks at Mathilde like a madman, and says, If you don't want my protection, then go. And the kid darts off back into the facility as Safin and co. continue to greet the arriving ships of their first buyers. Bit of an odd time, with Bond and Nomi running around, but I guess the ships get there when they get there. Maybe circle?
Unless he had ships loaded up, like how would they offload this with the British Navy right around the corner?
They had to have seen the Navy skulking around when they were coming in.
Had to have.
Back with Nomi, being approached by a goon squad and retreating with Oberchev, who won't shut up. He says, I don't need a lab to wipe your entire people from the face of the earth. And she looks at him like, motherfucker? Do you know what time it is? Time to die. Cheesy line, but she kicks his ass into the Heracles farm pool, which kills him and further disrupts the system after another goon fell in as well.
That's about all he deserves. And to be honest, I would have shot him a lot sooner.
He dies a horrible death. And the line was old school cringe, but have you noticed the word time was probably in the script 5,000 times? Really want you to get the message.
Time is the whole premise of the movie. Everything is on a clock, if you hadn't noticed. And yes, that racist fuck deserved to die. And here's a pro tip for you people out there. Don't be racist to the black person saving your life.
Or at least holding you at gunpoint.
Either or. I'm not saying I would have shot him, but I probably would have shot him. I'd have been like, ooh, that scientist. He didn't make it.
Nomi takes out the goons surrounding her, because she's a full good guy now. And we cut to Bond and Swan finding their daughter, who was just hiding under a table. The reunion is played perfectly, and Bond says they should go.
Oh man, the look of confusion, relief, disbelief on their face, that was well acted, because there was like all three of those feelings in one look when they heard her voice. They're like, there's no fucking way.
My whole thing is, yeah, she ran off into the facility. She could have been anywhere. But when they ran into that room, there was like a bunch of female worker drones that scattered. And yet, no one just noticed the random white girl under the table while they were working?
No, isn't the base like on full alert, like an evacuation alert? I'm pretty sure they're more concerned with getting out of the poison house than this little white girl that has nothing to do with them.
She could have run in while they were starting to evacuate, and then they wouldn't have paid it any mind. It just seemed a little odd because of the way they filmed it. It seems like everyone starts running as Bond enters.
Yeah.
Like, the evacuation isn't the cause, like he is.
Right.
But you're definitely right. It's supposed to be the evacuation. It's just a little filming error there. They should have had their background moving well before then.
Weird Q, whoever's running background that day fucked up.
Cutting to Q when he's buzzed by Russian MiGs. And then to Tanner, telling M the Russians, Americans, and Japanese are all asking why they're circling the disputed island. M says, don't tell them anything just yet.
Typical British intelligence. This is why I'm retiring from MI6. This shit right here.
He says he's retiring. We'll see you in 2028.
Well, I didn't say you couldn't pull me out of retirement. They always seem to pull James Bond out of retirement.
Meanwhile, Bond is still leading his family out when he runs into Nomi and admits to her, but really himself, that they are his family. I love how it washes over him. His family. Something he's never really had. Something to finally live for. Something to finally die for.
It is such a touching moment, the look on his face, because he doesn't know what to call them. It's like a robot searching for a word that it's never used before.
and it washes over him like, holy shit, I have a family.
Right. It's a powerful moment. It is the pinnacle of the growth of this particular James Bond right there.
This movie is so full of the most powerful human moments ever in Bond films. It's endlessly full of them.
Oh, yeah.
Bond tells Q to missile strike the island to destroy the Heracles facility. Q lets him know ships are coming in, and Bond puts his family on a boat in the sub-pen. He wraps his sweater around his daughter, and he tells Madeline that he has to finish it. So he kisses her and sends them off with Nomi.
This is such a touching scene because this is Bond's first real fatherly interaction with his daughter. It's cold out there, honey. Here, take my sweater. You're going to be all right. Daddy's got you.
One of the ideas of parenting is that you give, if not a piece of yourself, damn near all of yourself to them throughout their development.
You sacrifice, look, as a parent, I know you sacrifice your life for your children.
Figuratively and literally.
It's a consistent sacrifice.
And the sweater is almost a subtle foreshadowing. It really is. It's psychological, subtle foreshadowing to Bond's death. He is giving her what piece of him that he can at the time to give her some security, some comfort. And at the end of the movie, he'll do it again, just ultimately.
Yep, his first and last real fatherly moment.
I mean, he did cook for her.
Well, he did cook for her.
Bond then takes his Mark 18 and puts every second of training, experience, skill, and instinct on full display. The accumulation of his entire life's abilities engaged now for the first time ever with true personal purpose. The true resourcefulness and vulnerability of Bond in action. The way we always look at Jason Bourne or John Wick as killing machines that know their way around every single possible situation or entryway. They can use anything as a weapon. Here, Bond finally gets the same but long overdue treatment.
Oh, man. This is fantastic. It's magnificent. It's not one take, but it doesn't have to be because it is well shot, well executed. The stunts are visceral and realistic. I kind of worry about him if he did survive because this might have been too much traumatic brain injury for him. Things could have gotten bad later in life.
He works his way through, taking everyone out while having a conversation with M, telling M to fuck everyone else and their explanations, just fire the damn missiles. Mallory warns of war, and Bond says if we don't, there'll be nothing left to save. He'll kill everyone eventually. And he's right.
Bond's super serious right now. He's like, fuck policy, fuck politics.
This is about legitimately saving the world.
Take it from me. I've saved the world a couple of times, and let me tell you right now, this is another one of those times, man.
Q reminds Bond of the blast doors over the facility, and Bond heads to open them. He should have plenty of time, and he's activated full Bond mode, so everyone else is just in his way, especially the ones in the lab where they planted all those charges. Well, now they aren't anything.
I was like thinking to myself, well, that's bloody convenient that they decided to set up the mind room as a ambush point for James Bond.
He thought that too. He thought that was hella convenient.
Yeah.
He said, well, okay, guys.
Well, okay, guys.
Why not? There's an amazing moment after Bond blows the lab where he turns a blind corner and enters a long circular hallway. An unseen op fires at Bond, and Bond quick turns and shoots the op in an actual in-storyline realization of the gun barrel sequence. It's fucking amazing. This wasn't a transition or a scene cap either. It's a real part of an actual gun battle.
Yep. Turn and fire. He's been working on it his whole career.
He's been waiting for that specific goon for 60 years. He enters a stairwell, and a goon tosses down an RGD-5 hand grenade, which Bond grabs and tosses back up. So they drop 3 more, and Bond dives up the first landing on the stairwell before they explode, bursting steam pipes, which in this place I'd be hella worried about.
Oh, man. As I said, I would have evacuated immediately. It was like, I'm on Poison Island. Something's going wrong. I gotta go.
I'm on Poison Island, and those steam pipes just burst.
We gotta get out of here. We gotta get the fuck out of here. You don't know how deadly this place is. We gotta go.
He works his way up through the shroud, shooting everyone. He takes cover behind a steel door and shoots a goon, who drops a grenade which explodes in front of the steel door. It still knocks Bond back and rings his ears and his fucking head.
Traumatic brain injury. So much traumatic brain injury.
I mean, if Bond lived, he'd be Bruce Willis. He'd have dementia.
He'd have something. There would be some serious issues. I mean, yes, Bruce Willis would probably be the optimal scenario, but I'm thinking a trained killer like that would probably Chris Benoit.
Right. Ouch. It's true.
It's true, though.
And if that name doesn't ring a bell, we'll say Aaron Hernandez.
Well, I figured I'd drop your wrestling reference for you this time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Using shadows, he sneaks underneath a goon and shoots him, causing the goon to fall in front of Bond, and Bond uses the guy as a meat shield from another goon's fire as he shoots that goon too.
Double meat shield, double coons.
He repeats this process, moving up body by body, the camera following, uncut the whole time, hearkening back to the tracking shot from the stairwell in Casino Royale.
Right?
And as Carter said, it's an amazing, amazing fucking sequence.
Give me this in all the James Bond movies from now on. And he doesn't have to go full John Wick for the whole entire movie. But yeah, if there's a situation that calls for full John Wick, then let's do that shit.
It truly is the Daredevil hallway scene of the Bond movies.
Yes, truly the Daredevil hallway scene of the Bond movies.
More and more goons come, and he dispatches them almost before they realize they've even entered the fight. This is Bond, being the best agent/assassin in the world. He's not winning by luck or because of someone else. He's not barely surviving mild threats. He is unstoppable. It is a moment well-deserved by the franchise. It's overdue. And because Bond needs to blow this place before everyone else gets there, from buyers to other nations, it does nothing to kill the tension. It's a reward to the viewer, a realization of what we've always known. He's more than a charming man in the right place with the right luck at the right time. He's the best in the world.
Yes, he is damn good. The best.
Primo jumps out, and oh yeah, that guy. Every single time he reappears, I'm always like, oh, I forgot about him.
I like how he suckers them into the hallway before he offs those guys just before Primo. Yeah, I'm going to pretend like I didn't see you, but oh, wait, turn around and cap you both, and then I'm going to choke this guy to death.
In the original script, Safin had his own different hench who was written out. And I'm sure Cyclops here was originally supposed to die in Cuba, but they just transferred him.
I think too many henches would have been a little confusing because you already had the doctor professor who was sort of a hench as well.
I know they wrote out the original one who also wore a mask like Safin. So the rest of it's speculation, but I think you're right. I think they were like, it's too much, and instead of Cyclops dying in Cuba with the rest of them, they just transferred him over, and that's why Ash just shows up in an insert like, hey, you're working with us now.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense from a writer's perspective, you know?
Yeah, from a production standpoint anyway.
Both.
Primo tries to choke Bond from behind, so Bond dives down the stairs, landing on Primo before choking him in kind. They struggle. The music rises in the eerie, infinite oscillating tones that gets under your skin, and Bond hits his EMP watch under Primo's eye, which causes it to explode somehow.
EMPs, I guess?
I guess? What? That's not how that works.
Yes, that is not how that works. Do you know how powerful the electromagnetic pulse has to be to make something explode like that?
Literally coronal mass ejection level of energy.
I mean, yes. Yes. Literally coronal mass ejection level of energy, because it happened once. But
you need a star.
Yes.
Basically.
Basically kind of need a star.
Fuck science.
I don't know. Maybe we can get it, but...
No. Not anything we have right now is viable, even theoretical technology.
Nuclear bomb doesn't do it. A nuclear bomb doesn't do it. Just let you guys know that a nuclear bomb would not make your electric devices explode.
The EMP blast from a nuclear bomb.
Yes. So just saying, that's not how that works.
This would have been better if Swan wasn't bluffing about her tea blinding Primo's good eye, and he was relying on the magic eye to see, and Bond just shorted it out to blind Primo, causing him to pause struggling just enough for Bond to snap his neck. But, you know, that's not what they did.
No, what they did was,
Stupid. Bond needs a moment. He may be the best at this, but everything that happened in his life, and everything given to him recently, is making this hard on him. His eyes, well red, and he catches his breath. Q asks if Bond's okay, and Bond says He showed someone Q's watch, and it blew their mind.
Silly. Saw it coming a mile away.
Bond finds the control room and powers it all up, as no one's used the old machinery in decades. Q takes forever trying to emphasize to Bond about the precise, careful order of operations he needs to properly complete. Oh, Bond's got it. Never mind. Well, okay, never mind. The luck has returned.
Well, I look at it like this. He's a relic from the Cold War, kinda.
This is World War II era technology.
Well, pretty basic stuff. A lot of switches to flip. Never mind, I got it.
Bond opens the blast doors and tells Q to send the missiles. Q tells M, who's wearing the weight of all of this, don't hesitate to launch. Q tells Bond the missiles are airborne, and he has 9 minutes. Thank God they had a warship already deployed in the engageable area.
Oh, of course they did. I mean, why wouldn't they?
It could have taken weeks to get there normally.
It would have taken weeks. I like how M's face, when he gives the captain permission to launch, it's just like he realizes he's writing his resignation as well.
It kind of looks like it, doesn't it?
Yeah, oh yeah.
I mean, he's going to have to answer for this. It's
Right.
going to fall on his head.
It's going to fall on his head. He realizes that this is his last thing doing as M.
Realistically, it probably is. That's most likely the eventual fate.
The outcome. Right. Now, this is especially, he didn't tell anybody.
Running through the facility, Bond spots his daughter's bunny and tucks it in his suspenders as the blast doors start closing. Bond runs across the Zen garden to get back to the control panel and is shot by Safin in the torso and then in the back.
Yeah, it's gonna leave a mark for sure. Probably fatal. I know they're small calibers, but you got a lot of organs up in there.
I mean, both of those bullets went into the torso. One of them honestly looked like it hit his fucking liver.
That's what I was thinking. It's like one looked like it hit his liver. So I'm thinking he's mortally wounded. It's not the last bullet he's gonna take before this fight is through.
He got shot in his liver. It becomes very obvious because you see where the blood is and how the bunny gets soaked in it and how he has it in his suspenders.
Mm-hmm.
The bunny acts as a pressure gauze.
Right.
And probably keeps him from bleeding out.
Keeps him from going into shock.
Because, like, he stays alive pretty long for someone shot in that area, actually.
Yeah, and it's because of the rabbit.
Him stopping and grabbing his daughter's bunny and putting it where he did is the only reason he lived as long as he did to get this done and say goodbye to them. And which is the reason he did that. It's the entire reason they put it in. They went out of their way to film it and put it in there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he's just carrying a bunny.
Right.
But they go out of their way to make it that's where he's bleeding.
Right.
Think about it.
Yeah, I know. I did. It's very clever film work.
Quite the mess you made. Like an animal. Bond rushes Safin, who fires at him again. Bond flips Safin and takes him down in the fountain when Safin breaks Swan's Heracles vial on Bond's face, scraping it down his cheek.
I know, he doesn't even notice in the heat of the moment and all the bullets he's taken and whatnot.
Nah, he's running on pure adrenaline and shock right now.
Yeah.
Bond disarms Safin.
Is that what we're going to call it?
Near literally, by breaking his fucking arm.
And we in the profession like to call that a compound fracture.
He manhandled it until it brutally snapped.
He broke it. He broke it across his knee like a board.
If Safin lived, that break is so bad it could have been amputated.
It's potentially crippling for life.
It's definitely crippling for life. There ain't no way that's healing right, no matter what, even best case scenario. Bond crouches back, bleeding into the fountain, his wounds finally overpowering his adrenaline. Safin lays in pain and a bit of disbelief, saying, "Now we are both poisoned with heartbreak. Two heroes in a tragedy of our own making." To the end, this guy never saw himself as a villain. It's fucking brilliant. You think Trump thinks he's a villain? And let's be clear, Trumpets, he is. Safin poetically explains to Bond that those scratches on his face are a death sentence to his family, showing the broken vial. Bond is fractured. The camera wobbles to convey the disorienting shock. He stands in almost broke detachment and picks up his P226. We hear a somber, tortured refrain of "No Time to Die" as Safin grins at Bond, who, in the most broken, almost dismissive way, shoots Safin 3 times while staring off distantly. There's no reaction. He almost doesn't care to kill him. I mean, he does, because of course he does, but make no mistake, Bond didn't entertain for a second the notion that he'd get anything back for it. He's lost so much now that all the revenge in the world couldn't give him a quantum of solace.
So, mortally wounded, poisoned,
Now he's emotionally mortally wounded.
and now he's out of time. He's out of practical time because the missiles are on the way. He's got to go all the way back up the stairs, open this thing. He's not going to make it. So choices are made. In this moment, Bond made the choice to die. He knew what he had to do. He could never be with them again.
You're right about one thing. The missiles are less than 5 minutes away at this point in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
We can talk about the watch and Safin and stuff later on and the bugs. And even if he didn't poison him,
he doesn't have
time. And he
Right.
already had said verbally to his family and the audience that he would die before leaving this out in the world for his daughter's future.
That's right. He doesn't have time.
Which is the real killer and villain of the movie.
He might have made it if Safin hadn't have shot him.
But now he's bleeding out.
Right. Now he's bleeding out, moving slow.
Slower with every step.
Poisoned or not, he doesn't have time.
I mean, if it weren't for the bunny, he probably wouldn't have even made it.
Right?
Bond limps to the control panel, pouring blood. Q tells Bond his family is on an adjacent island, safe. The missiles are less than 5 minutes away. Bond opens the blast doors, again. He futilely asks Q how to get Heracles off of you, and Q responds, "You know you can't, but it's harmless unless you're near the target."
What Q should have responded with is, well, use your EMP watch again, dumbass.
I mean, of all the people, I didn't think of this. I'm a dumb agent, Matthew Silas Sedgwick. Bond didn't think of this. I have no idea why Q didn't think of this.
It's the theoretical physics of the situation. Not all nanomachines are inorganic.
They're programmable. They have Wi-Fi.
Yeah, good point. They're programmable. And it's already been established that this is a super powerful watch AMP because it can blow up a fucking eyeball.
So if anything can fry those things,
So if anything should work,
I got news for you, man.
So what I'm thinking is, and you were kind enough to point this out, is maybe Q wanted Bond to die.
Yeah, this is my theory. It's something that I've come up with that I've termed the Doctor Strange theory. And it stems from Marvel Cinematic Universe, where Doctor Strange saw like 14 million outcomes for a scenario, and only one of them worked. And it happened to be the one where Iron Man died conveniently. And if you think about the MCU, if you really know anything about it, Iron Man was the cause of almost every major threat. He was either the creator of it or the attention of it.
Yeah. He either created the problem from a long or short
He
term,
lured it or made it worse.
or attracted the problem.
So I feel like there were plenty of outcomes and scenarios where they defeated Thanos and Tony lived. And then there was just some more bullshit that Tony brought on, another Ultron that he made. And he went until he found a situation that took care of all of his problems tidily. And that's what I think happened here with Q. Q knew for a fact that watch was definitely going to cure him. And when Bond said, "Hey, Q, do you have a cure for this?" he said, "Nope. Thanks for drinking my wine, asshole."
Oh, now, granted, this is a rogue theory.
The old Q looked at Bond like a father to a son. This Q looks at Bond like an annoyed younger sibling looks up to their older sibling.
He did, however, in Bond's last moments, he did show a bit of emotion, heartfelt emotion towards Bond.
Yeah, that's called guilt.
Yeah, definitely guilt. It's definitely guilt. Should I have mentioned the watch?
He might have actually tried, at least. I mean, he wouldn't have gotten very far, but, he wouldn't have just stood there.
Right.
Should have mentioned the watch. Oh well, let's have some tea. Bond laments to Q that not being near the target is just not going to work. And Q understands immediately. "Oh God, Madeline." "It's all right, Q. It's all right. Would you put Madeline on, please?" "Yes, of course."
He's like, "It's all right, Q. I got a bullet in my liver and I'm pretty sure I got another one pressing up against my spine. So..."
Literally, I could barely make it up to the top of this ladder for out of this room by the time the missiles get here. Like, do you honestly think I was going to get away anyways?
Yeah. It's okay, bro.
He knows he's dead.
Yeah. He knows.
He's just wanting to talk to his wife the same way Scott Hall wanted to talk to his wife from the top of Everest. In the exact same way.
Wouldn't it be crazy if they picked up the next Bond movie with him falling in the water and then like some sub rescuing him?
Yes, because they went out of their way to specifically animate a missile falling at his feet.
Yes, they did.
Just for people saying, maybe he lived it. They literally went out of their way to say no.
No. You didn't see the clothes blow off of him? Slow that down a couple frames.
Elvis! Now that's an Easter egg, you cowards. Why didn't you give it to us?
Right.
Nearby, Nomi gives her radio to Swan at Q's request. Swan talks to Bond as he climbs a ladder out of the facility. He tells her Safin is dead, and she tells him that they're safe. Bond tells her that he's not going to make it, as he struggles for breath on the ladder. Swan is sucked into a black hole. She sobs for him to just get off the island as her world spins around her, and he pulls himself onto the roof of the bunker. Swan breaks down. She knows he can make it, and everything's good now. There's no one left to hurt them, and they can finally be a family. Bond gasps that she's made the most perfect, beautiful thing he's ever seen, and Swan immediately knows, and cries, "You've been poisoned," remembering the vial. Bond, on his knees, covered in his own blood, says yes.
Yep. This is the one time where Bond was like, no lies, no obfuscation. I'm not gonna make it. I can never be with you.
He doesn't equivocate at all, which is weird for Bond now that you mention it.
And yeah, no, it's like it's probably the first time. Again, character growth for this James Bond. He does not equivocate in this moment, which under normal circumstances, he would. He'd make a little joke, a little quip.
He'd withhold information. He'd either not talk or talk about something else. Like, it's a power play for this guy.
Right, exactly. But not this time.
This is his armor gone. Truly gone.
Yeah.
Bond stands. His daughter's bunny, soaked in blood, and probably what's keeping him alive this long, acting as gauze, as I said before. There's a peaceful tranquility. The music is there, but the waves crash louder. It's a slice of heaven from Bond's view, and definitely a nice place to say goodbye. He could have ended in way worse places.
Oh yeah, great view. No, definitely.
I mean, how many times was his life almost taken in a far worse way, in a far nastier spot? Saying goodbye to your loved ones, he's standing in paradise.
Yeah.
Bond essentially has himself killed here.
Mm-hmm.
He's going out on his own terms instead of at someone's hand, essentially, even though,
He's picking his retirement.
Yeah, I dig it. This is a way of taking the death from Safin.
Yes, that's exactly. I saw the growth of this character from Casino Royale to here, and I saw a man who was, willing to do what it took to make sure the job got done to the final end. He couldn't risk letting Heracles get out in any form or fashion, and that included him.
This Bond has literally run into bullets without thinking his entire career.
Oh, yeah.
In Casino Royale, remember when they would shoot at him and he wouldn't even flinch? Getting shot didn't matter as long as the mission got done.
Yeah, getting shot didn't matter as long as the mission got done. A blunt instrument.
You're absolutely right. When you mention it, this Bond dying to complete a mission is so in line with this Bond.
He did what he was supposed to do. It was the perfect end to this movie. It was emotional, yes. It was heartbreaking, yes. But it was absolutely 100% what this Bond was supposed to do.
Swan wishes that they had more time. Bond gathers himself and tells her that she has all the time in the world. She tells him that she loves him, and he says, I know.
Han Solo!
He says he loves her too. The missiles are flying in, and Swan sees them before admitting she does have his eyes. And Bond just stands, accepting his fate, and smiles. I know. He's tired, old, dying. He's finally had something to live for, to die for, to give them a world where they can have a chance to be safe. He wasn't going to escape the island in time anyways.
No.
He wasn't vain or obtuse about it. He stood with British poise and dignity and finally took what time he had to say goodbye to his family.
Yep.
To die on his feet in paradise. And it takes all the missiles the Navy had to do it. And technically Bond sent them himself. He blew himself up, so Safin wasn't given the kill at the end of the round. He dies the most G death ever. And the one he deserves. Craig's Bond was about exploring the depths of humanity, and part of, if not one of the biggest parts, is death. Fleming wrote about it in the novel that helped inspire this film. Cubby constantly toyed with it, And why not do it here? With a side run that has a definitive start, middle, and end? What else would be the proper end to this broken character after all he went through? Just gaining a family was the happiest ending he could have ever had, and riding off into the sunset is unfulfilling, as Spectre proved. I digress. The music swells. Bond stands proud and strong with his daughter's bunny on his side. Every shot of this film is a work of art. It's almost Skyfall level. Almost
Skyfall level. There were some shots when Madeline was leaving on the boat and then she faded into white. That was another little subtle foreboding there. The last thing he sees of his family is the white light. So it's just well shot. Good color palette. Very good.
The missiles break apart above him to rain down, and Bond says one more time, I know. And it happens. There's no clever escape. There's no trickery or cheesy spent trope bullshit. They make sure to clearly show a missile landing at his feet. Our hero is gone. After doing his bit, and then more, over and over, he finally is let to rest, knowing this time he saved the only thing that matters. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
Pour one out for your homies.
Swan's heart breaks. Q watches the vitals flatline and sinks. He, Moneypenny, and M are all on the verge of tears, just trying to remain composed, a luxury not afforded to Swan, who's lost a huge part of her world yet again. This is the third time I've seen this scene, and this is the third time I've cried. I have cried every time I've seen it. Carter called me when I was writing the script, and I was literally bawling, like, oh, nothing's wrong, man. Maybe because I'm a poet, a hopeless romantic. Maybe it's because I have a daughter born a year and a half before the film came out, and I'm the target demo for these feels. But this gets me. It's beyond powerful. It's absolutely beautiful. The entire film is a masterpiece of beautiful writing, powerful themes, and brilliant execution.
Oh, it's such a fantastic turnaround from Spectre. It's a beautiful work of art. It is a near perfect culmination to a near perfect career.
Craig first proposed killing Bond after the premiere of Casino Royale, and Broccoli agreed to the suggestion back then. Craig said it's the only way I could see to end it all. Mike Wilson said that it was the fitting way to deal with a situation where a person is risking their life literally all of the time. Eventually, the odds catch up with you.
Eventually. You can't get lucky every time.
And as I said, just from an artistic point of view, from a writer point of view, from creating any kind of story, you've been doing these 60 years, you've explored so many facets of the character. Death is a big part, if not the biggest part of the human experience in terms of art and artistic expression.
Right?
Let Bond experience it too, you fucking weirdos.
Right?
Safin was entitled because something was taken from him at a young age, and he spent his entire life thinking he was owed something. Sad and bitter, incapable of introspection, and for as much as he mirrors Bond, in this moment of sacrifice, Bond shatters the reflection. Instead of deflecting, making excuses, blaming the world around him like Safin and himself previously, he takes ownership of his own toxicity, his own literal toxicity, for the first time in his life, and puts an end to it. Bond's sacrifice is powerful, and the message of the film. Instead of poisoning others, instead of self-sabotaging and hurting the ones around him, the ones he cares for most, instead of eternal damnation, he decides to make a change for his legacy, his reason to sacrifice, gifting them all the time in the world.
Safin is one good butler away from being Batman.
Yeah. It really helps to have a good, strong guiding hand in times of great trauma.
Yes.
Alfred is proof of that.
Alfred is proof of that.
We fade to white and transition through the clouds over London. We hear M mourning. It's been very hard to know what to say. And we cut to him placing a glass of scotch on a table in his office.
He still has an office?
You know how it takes months for them to cycle them out?
Yes, I know. I'm just kidding.
He gathered the MI6ers and reads a Jack London quote. The quote itself was first published in the San Francisco Bulletin in 1916 and later served as an introduction to a compilation of London's short stories in 1956. But what's particularly interesting about the use of the quote here is that it's not the first time that it's been used to describe James Bond. In this movie's novel inspiration, Ian Fleming's You Only Live Twice, which bears only a passing resemblance to the film that bears its name, Bond's obituary appears in the paper. The same London quote is used as an addendum to the obituary. The quote in the movie is actually a shortened version of the following. I would rather be ashes than dust. I would rather that my spark should burn out in a brilliant blaze than it be stifled by dry rot. I would rather be a superb meteor, every atom of me in magnificent glow, than a sleepy and permanent planet. The proper function of man is to live, not to exist. I shall not waste my days in trying to prolong them. I shall use my time. Fleming loved the quote because it embodied him and his thoughts on death. But it's also the theme of the movie. Bond could have had all of that kid's life so far with them, could have been there for her. He threw it all away, and nothing was left when he figured it out. Time is the most precious thing we have. Time with the people most precious to us. It's something every fallen ally has tried to warn him about along the way, pleaded for him to understand. And now, this film pleads to us. This isn't just the message of the film, it's the summary of Craig's run. Everything has led to this. In fact, his entire last film is perfectly crafted by Fukunaga as a culmination of Craig's run. It feels like everything in the movie is perfectly built on what came before. It's the sum of them.
It is. As I said, it is the perfect culmination of the Craig era.
You remember how we said Spectre's greatest weakness was pretty much ignoring everything that came before it?
Yeah.
It made it all bullshit.
This movie did the exact opposite.
Nothing is here without a foundation built before it.
Right. Yep.
They raised their glasses to James, and you notice the painting behind them in his office. Paul Nash's Battle of Germany, an abstract work from 1944 of a city under attack, selected as it hints at M's emotional conflicts throughout the film. The scene is also a payoff to a few earlier setups. Before, the office moved on, scoffed about retiring the number. Here, you get a sense the void won't be so easily filled. It feels like a jersey retirement.
It definitely feels like a jersey retirement.
We cut to the Aston V8, ripping up the highway from the opening of the film, on the Tyrrhenian coast. The high shrinks again singing We Have All the Time in the World. But this time, it's Swan driving with Mathilde as the doe-eyed passenger. The sunlight bathes them as Swan speeds on, and she smiles at her daughter. There's a colorful, perfectly saturated, and vibrant palette in this film, making for the best-looking Bond film since Skyfall. It's the most beautiful Bond film to me on the whole, and while I do mean emotionally, it's also, like Skyfall, just a visual work of art.
It is.
Swan says, Mathilde, I'm going to tell you a story about a man. His name is Bond, James Bond. The girl smiles. The strings fade away, and Louis Armstrong's We Have All the Time in the World strikes up as the Aston goes through the tunnel to Matera. It's the black screen with the white dot, one last time. Because I've said since our first episode, you'll never escape the dots.
No, you never escape the dots. Is that the first time that kid smiled the whole movie?
Dude, probably, honestly. Because she looked confused and then scared. And I think that is literally the first time she smiled.
Yeah, and she heard her father's name.
Fade to black, hit it, Louis. Roll credits. And yes, James Bond will return. It wouldn't be the first reboot, calm down. Also, funny name in the credits, one last time, Red Chutney. And J. Bond representing the Bonds.
Red Chutney.
That's your name?
I wonder what that tastes like.
Cannibalism, baby. Donner Carter over here.
I didn't say I want to eat that particular red chutney, but, you know.
I'm giving this movie an A+. It's a fine wine that seems to get better and better each time I sit down to enjoy it.
I, too, am giving this movie, I'm giving it 100%. No, I'm giving it an A+ as well. Because it is a near perfect Bond film. I go through my notes and everything, and aside from the smartwatch, to be honest, I have no complaints.
And even that has an in-universe explanation if you think Q did it on purpose.
And we have a fan theory that would explain that away, even still. So, yeah, A+. So, yeah, A+.
Shouldn't have drank that wine, Bond.
Shouldn't have drank that wine. That just goes to show you, don't piss off the weebs.
Don't piss off the people who run shit for you in the background.
Yeah.
For the kill count, how many do you think Bond kills in this movie?
I'm going to say 27.
66. Bond kills 66, 89 die by other means for a total of 155 confirmed deaths.
I might count them again.
Apparently a bunch of other people are dying around the world with Heracles, but that could have been a news report for all we care.
Right.
For the pre-title, this is the longest pre-title, and definitely the heaviest. A mom brutally murdered in front of her child. Bond and Swan in an exotic locale. Vesper. Spectre. 2 chases. Multiple mind-blowing real stunts, like the arch hop. All ending in the one decision that takes the most from Bond, and sets up the entire movie. Like the world is not enough, it is bogged down under its own weight, though. 3rd place.
I gave the pre-title sequence 2nd place, because as delicious and delightful as it was kind of long. There was a point when I was first watching this movie, I was like, oh, so we're not even going to get a pre-title sequence. And then it was over, and I was like, oh, really long pre-title sequence.
For the title, it's almost every Bond title rolled into one, and executed to near perfection in my opinion. It's beautiful and thematically tied to the film while paying constant homage. The song is amazing for me. One of the best. Not the best, but one of. Making this title as a whole, for me, the best. Congrats, Danny boy. You came a long way. 1st place.
Wow. As much as I like this title, and as near perfect as it was, I love the title sequence in this movie, but I'm giving it 3rd place because there's just other ones that I like just a little bit more. And it was a tough choice, trust me.
Moneypenny pickup line. The giddiness that Moneypenny has when Bond returns and she's flicking his badge, asking him to go to dinner as code for let's go and get Q and go rogue. That's about all we get in this film. But it's still better than nothing, and honestly, it's actually better than just some of the cheesy pickup lines. At this point, you're seeing 3 movies of development between these characters in an ongoing way, not just committing the same flirtatious acts in different ways. Their entire relationship has genuinely evolved in a normal human way. 17th place.
Just because I like this Moneypenny so much, I gave this one 7th place. Because, it wasn't a flirty pickup line, but she does what Moneypenny does and gets the band together.
I mean, she flirted with him. She did.
She did. So, 7th place.
It's just not cheesy. It's just more real.
Right.
So it doesn't stand out.
It's more human. Right.
Q gadgets. Q gives Bond an EMP watch, QDAR for guidance, and more smart blood for those who didn't see or more likely forgot Spectre. But we really need to confirm he's dead, and he can't shed those. Can't say, oh, he took off his monitors.
Right.
The QDAR was a visual aid / plot aid. The watch was actually used by Bond to enter the facility and kill Primo. It's better than Spectre, I guess. 16th place.
I gave it 10th place just because they gave this Q character a little more growth in the final movie, and his gadgets, quote unquote, worked better. 10th place.
I'd like to know how QDAR worked at all.
Yeah, so do I. Is it like Leiter with... It's definitively some sort of Leiter.
Because it's definitely not sonar and mapping that facility like that.
Right.
Cars. The DB5, the Vantage, the DBS Superlegra, the Valhalla.
And you mean all the Astons?
All the Astons. 1st place. What else do you want?
1st place. It had all the Astons. That's just 1st place.
What else would make you happy? Like your favorite Aston from your past film is in this one with some more. Shut up. This one wins.
Yes.
They were smart not to put the Vanquish in here. The Vanish.
Always equate it with the BMW.
Yeah, because you think Pierce Brosnan's Bond and you think BMW, and that's also like blasphemous, but true.
Yeah. Sucks.
Main ally, Felix Leiter. The man needs no introduction. Not even this version. I'd call this one quintessential at this point. He's more than an ally. He's more than a friend. He's a brother. And sadly, another person close to Bond, lost because of Bond. Felix's death is perfect. It furthers the theme of this film and the overall theme of Craig's entire run. It's beautiful. It's devastating. I felt it. And still, like the others, He uses his dying breath to tell Bond to be the man he's meant to be. Sorry, Nomi, but you had to get pushed aside for this. First place. It was always going to be Felix, wasn't it?
When I was scoring this, I wrote down Felix and I wrote down Nomi. I wrote down Felix first and I wrote down Nomi second. I gave Felix first place. This is the quintessential Felix. He's the quintessential ally. I mean, even when he was eating chicken and Goldfinger, he was at least there. It's Felix, right? Felix is to James Bond what Robin is to Batman. You can't beat the combination. You can't top it. Felix is number one ally.
Villains. Lucifer Safin, a Dracula-esque leech that takes from everyone, manipulating their very choices and actions like a narcissistic wannabe god because his childhood trauma supposedly gifted him with purpose. Like Bond, he also uses Swan emotionally as his life is crumbling around him, and he feels he must possess her. He must possess that virtuous feeling of saving her from drowning, and Swan is just a token to him that makes him feel better. He wants to keep her like a plant he keeps in his garden, and if you don't belong to Safin, he might as well leave you to die. It's a crazy dichotomy, but it's very real. Safin is a reflection of Bond, again, I know, but this time of all the things that make Bond a bad partner, and his desperate pursuit of getting back to that feeling he had with Vesper. Safin views people and relationships as to what he can get out of them, and when they become inconvenient for him, he rids himself of them. It's why he dismisses Mathilde after she bites him. It's everything or nothing for this guy. He is the world's shepherd, and he knows not only what is best for the world, but he knows exactly how to give it to them. He will use Heracles to become humanity's invisible, supremacist god, sneaking under their skin. He thinks he can eliminate hundreds of thousands of people like he's spraying weed killer in his garden and simply make the world a perfect place. Safin is alone and is a personification of global isolationism. Outside of James Bond himself being the defining element of a Bond film, it's the villain. More Batman similarities. And a lot of people just see this one as just some guy who showed up and killed James Bond. But Rami Malek is giving a nuanced, masterful performance that physically shows what motivates Safin. And Safin is a force of nature. Look at how he took down Spectre. He does to Blofeld what Blofeld did to Bond, preying on Blofeld's hatred of Bond to destroy Spectre from the inside. It's one thing to take everything away from someone, but to manipulate someone into doing it themselves is fucking Shakespearean.
Oh, it's more Alexander Dumasian.
He's immersed in Japanese culture, looking and feeling like a better executed Dr. No. But the nuances of Safin and his motivations can definitely slip between the cracks of everything else that's happening in this movie, and I get that. But I do like his mask, though. Second place, come at me. Tidbit, real quick. He's also offloading Heracles to the kind of people who he would want to wipe out, and it's pretty clear that he's giving it to them as a Trojan horse, like Blofeld's Angels of Death in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is just another nod in a film of many.
Safin, while probably not the greatest villain of this franchise, was definitely the second greatest villain of this franchise. He was like Dominic Green, but unfucking hinged. And yeah, people say like, oh, Dominic Green was unhinged.
Yeah, he made Dominic Green seem normal.
But Safin was unhinged like a supervillain is unhinged. This dude was ready to eradicate the world because somebody killed his parents. And he had gotten the people who killed his parents. Mind you, he had killed everybody who gotten his parents.
Oh, that's completely believable. He would never be satisfied.
Yeah, never going to be satisfied. So he got a number 2 on this list because he was very scary and very unpredictable, not knowing whether or not he was going to kill you at any moment, which he could have done at any moment. I vacillated between him and Dominic Green. It was really close. People don't give Dominic Green the diligence that he deserves.
Yeah, Dominic Green is another super underrated villain, actually.
Super underrated
they act
villain.
like Goldfinger's the greatest villain ever, and then act like Dominic Green's the worst. And I'm just like, what?
Yeah, no, Goldfinger was cartoonish. Dominic Green was very believable.
Main Hinch, Primo, also known as Cyclops. I honestly kind of get the feeling that Primo and Ash share the original dropped henchman's part, making Ash effective but barely in the movie, whereas Primo is pre-title to climax but is near inconsequential. You forget about him. He never seems like anything but a speed bump to Bond, and Swan takes him out with tea. The eye is stupid looking, too. Someone said he looked like Robert De Niro from Rocky and Bullwinkle, and now I can't unsee it. 22nd place.
That's funny. I didn't heard that. This guy popped up like a cameo in his own movie as a henchman. I gave him 15th place because he barely did anything, but he did do some things. So, 15th place.
For a dude with a bulging glass eye, I sure forgot about him a lot.
I know, right?
Not very memorable for such a memorable looking dude.
Yeah, every time he popped up, I was like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, you. I forgot about you. I'm sure Bond thought that too when he saw him again. He's like, oh yeah,
right? Like,
what the
what
fuck, you? Yeah, you. Oh shit.
What are you still doing here?
For real, you came here to die? All right, that's cool. I'm still kind of pissed about Matera. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
Bond girl, Madeline Swan, was introduced last time, but where paper thin before is beyond realized in this film. She is abandoned by the men that she respects and loves. It happened to her with her father, who is also a killer, and it's happened with Bond. She also seems to attract killers. She's practically gaslit and abandoned pregnant, forced to bring up a child on her own, hurting. She's a strong woman, not because of her ability to wield a gun and do badass action things, but because of her emotions, her role as a good mother, offering her daughter the life that she was never able to have, hoping for a better future. Swan's strength was to move forward despite everything that happened to her, whereas Bond always retreated into himself. She's forced to wield off the advances of bitter men looking to use her as a coping mechanism for their own insecurities and problems. And it's only when Bond recognizes this and reconciles with his own wrongdoings that the two find each other again. Like I said, while underdeveloped in Spectre, she's fully explored here. This Madeline is one of the best Bond women ever. She's also the first Bond girl to lead in 2 films in a row, but more importantly, she's Bond's family. And for the record, she is a badass too. She took a microsecond to pop that goon looking at her kid. And Sado is a fucking tour de force here. 2nd place.
Ooh, 2nd place. I liked this Madeline Snow so much better than the last Madeline Snow.
Swan. This is not Game of Thrones.
Oh, right. Swan, not Snow. Sorry. I love this Madeline Swan.
Bastard of the North.
than the other Madeline Swan. Because, here's the thing. She was much more active in this movie. She was much more fleshed out. The backstory made sense, even though they had to change a couple of things in there that didn't quite make sense. But they did all right with that. I really liked her. I liked her a lot. She did have her standout moment, but then hostage girl, like most Bond girls. So 3rd place.
One-liner. They had the gamut of one-liners. Badass ones, suave ones, funny ones. I showed someone your watch. It really blew their mind. He did all his trademark quotes and even a few power play one-liners. But he did a few sentimental and romantic ones as well, including the one I'm giving it to for this film. I have always done funny or badass ones, and this one is just beautiful. You have all the time in the world. To Swan before his death. 4th place.
Oh. I gave one-liners 9th place in this because I didn't count those as one-liners. The one that kind of stuck out to me was the one about the parents when he was talking to Safin for the first time.
It is a one-liner when you think about it. She said, I wish we had more time, and he quips back with that. It's just sweet instead of funny and badass.
It is. It's just sweet instead of funny, yeah.
Locations. Italy, England, Jamaica, Cuba, Norway, Safin's Island.
The locations were magnificent. They were well shot, fantastic. If you've noticed, the Bond movies that we like have great use of their locations. And the Bond movies that we don't like do not have great use of their locations. Remember that one in Vegas?
And what he means by that is they all go places, but it doesn't mean it matters most of the time.
Right, they all go places, but sometimes those places get showcased better than other places.
The best Bond movies, the locations are just as much of a character as any other character in the movie. He's absolutely right. It's about utilizing the location.
It's about utilizing the locations.
Not just going somewhere pretty.
Yeah, not right. Not just going somewhere pretty, but utilizing the locations. And this movie did a fantastic job at it. Was it as good as some of the predecessors? Not quite, because some movies have just nailed it. Skyfall. I gave it 4th place.
The locations are stunning. The sets are masterpieces with obvious Adamian influence. The locations are utilized in the story, but more importantly, are shot brilliantly. 2nd place. Protracted attempt to kill Bond, the boat sinking. Ash locking Bond up and blowing the hull to sink it is the protracted attempt. Safin tries to deal with Bond and later just shoots him. But this is a pretty decent attempt. It's non-cartoonish, it's realistic, it had a chance of working. Ash just should have stuck around to make sure. But it does give us another tragic death of a loved one for Bond, and this time it's Felix, 3rd place.
It was a clever, protracted attempt to kill Bond, but I feel they could have done better had they just stuck around. 13th place.
Just, you're in a Cessna, just circle at low altitude with a handgun.
Just stick around. Shoot anything that floats to the surface.
Is that a life raft? Pop, pop, pop. Later, Bond.
Just, stick around for a little bit. Just make sure. That's the failing of every movie death trap ever. Nobody sticks around to make sure. These are not murder tips from Agent Carter.
For the mission or plot. After Spectre steals a potential weapon of mass destruction and its creator, Bond is brought in by the CIA to get them back. But a new foe enters the chat. Bond has to face Blofeld and Spectre for good, deal with the fallout of his ex-boss's bad judgment, and make amends with his own family, while trying to stop a genocidal narcissist psycho from unleashing a super mecha bubonic plague that he controls. Some of this is homage to the past. Some are ideas they didn't get to do before, and some is plot recycling. But this is the best we've seen at this attempt. It's better than involving space or sea labs. I do hate nanobots, though. 7th place.
While I appreciate their attempt at cutting-edge technology usage in all things James Bond, from the very beginning to now, they try to be on the cutting edge of what could be technologically possible. That being said, if there was the technology, fairly feasible plan. I gave it a 4th place overall. It's a lot better than some of those other stupid plans. Not as good as some of those perfect revenge plots. 4th place.
Stunts. The stunts are fantastic. There's a massive motorcycle jump. So many car chases and stunts. Brutal, amazing fights with brilliant camera work to involve the audience and enhance the choreography. Amazing gunfights, especially Cuba and the Stairwell Runner. But there's been films that had a lot more of the larger stunt set pieces. So 3rd place.
Well, we've dinged it again because I also put the stunts in 3rd place and pretty much for all of the same reasons. I can't disagree and I don't want to cover the same stuff you just talked about, but that is exactly it. This is 3rd place stunt. The stunts were fantastic. The stairwell scene, magnificent. The only thing would have been great if they just pushed him down the stairs and he had to go up again. Oh my God, that would have been...
Like, this movie was just missing one more major stunt set piece.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, something big, like a helicopter barrel roll or car corkscrewing. Just something. Just a little... So, 3rd place.
For the score.
Hans Zimmer's score is masterful. And it is a very key component, a character of this film. It's so... leading. It puts you on edge when you need to be on edge. It illustrates the countdown of time. It is the perfect score for this film. But even as I said, his score is masterful. It is. It is the perfect score for this movie.
You literally said in this review earlier that it could only have been better if they hired John Williams.
It could have only been better if they hired John Williams. I'm not going to disagree. I like other scores better. That's why I'm letting you know that this score is a 4. I'm not saying that this score wasn't good. It was great. It was fantastic. I'm just saying, it just felt like another character in the movie. You know what I'm saying?
The score is perfect at all times. It is a beautiful blending of multiple atmospheric emotions, seamlessly dancing themes around and into each other, giving life to the film. It is a masterpiece of scores. It's gorgeous. But what do you expect when you hire Hans fucking Zimmer? First place. Movie. No Time to Die is the perfect conclusion to Craig's tenure as Bond, and one of the best and the most emotional Bond films ever, because it focuses on who Bond is and how Daniel Craig has defined him. This film has Bond vulnerable, but not overly nihilistic. Many of the problems that arise in both his professional and personal life are a result of his cynical outlook getting in his own way. He's never one to look inward at himself, but rather shift the blame to the world around him. This is a man trapped in a prison of his own misguided judgment. In his mind, the world doesn't want him to have a normal life, so that must be just the way it is, and he doesn't stop to think about it. Status quo. In the end, Safin quite literally makes Bond toxic to the people around him. Were Bond the man we knew him to be at the beginning of the film, he probably would have found a way to escape and continue his vicious cycle. But this Bond had discovered clarity. He finally reconciles with the fact that perhaps he actually is the problem. Fukunaga is the first American Bond director and the first director of an Asian descent to head a Bond film. He has such a poetic, philosophical, and character-driven vision that he thrives on the edge of the light of sincere and the bleak of the macabre. He drew heavily from Fleming's novels and the Dalton era. In fact, No Time to Die is the most Fleming and least Connery Bond film ever. It's almost a perfect adaptation of the novel You Only Live Twice, as I've said, with fresh takes on some of the novel's more iconic moments, such as Bond choking Blofeld, Bond having a daughter, and even Bond's death. But this film still offers more, with callbacks to Casino Royale to bookend the tenure. There's the reverse play of On Her Majesty's Secret Service's ending. There's emotion tied to the action, whether it's Bond and Swan fleeing Spectre goons in the longest pre-title sequence by far, or the eerie claustrophobia of the Norway forest that has Bond going full Rambo, or even the jaw-dropping, viscerally intense stairway long take. This is one of the best action entries in the franchise, and it's because it all ties back to character story. All the action is used to establish and progress character. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is superfluous. No Time to Die perfectly captures what those final Fleming novels are all about, what they're like, the idea of escaping what Bond is while also reflecting on it. There's an innate existentialism to this story. You only live twice, once when you're born and once when you look death in the face. The two major parts of the mortal experience is birth and death. Besides your name, it's all they put on your grave. But Bond misses out on this because of his cyclical purgatory. Here we ask, what if Bond had something to live for and subsequently something to die for? What if he was capable of deviating from the status quo, becoming aware of his own jaded misunderstanding of life and the world around him? Bond is convinced people never change, the world never changes, and while he truly loved Swan, he was also using her emotionally. He certainly cares for her, but doesn't realize he was using her to cope with his hang-ups on Vesper. Madeline even senses this. This is why she asks him to visit Vesper's grave. This film asks, is Bond capable of reconciling with his actions and his past to make a change? This film is about the nature of relationships. It's about time, how we use it, and how easily we waste it on simply not letting go. Time is the enemy of man and the true villain in the film. We have all the time in the world isn't just a piece of fan service. It's the entire point. Everyone has all the time in the world, but it's what you do with that time that matters. If Bond had only trusted Madeline, those 5 minutes would have been 5 years. Instead, they lost 5 years together, and those 5 years turned out to be all they had, while he wasted away in Jamaica with nothing to live for, numb, accepting that nothing changes, including himself, which is even a meta comment on the Bond formula. It's a film about people stuck in the status quo, learning to let go of the past to progress forward, and that goes for MI6 as well. Mallory came to the belief during Spectre that the world is too beholden to the oversight that he valued during Skyfall. Throughout the entirety of Spectre, he is impeded by superiors who claim to be on his side, and with the exception of C, they probably mean to be, but still almost create the biggest breach in the history of the world's intelligence community. M begins keeping secrets from his superiors during that film, and apparently, in the intervening years since, he's doubled down on this duplicity for the greater good, resulting in Heracles. Then there's Nomi, playing strictly by the books and maintaining the status quo, until she comes to work alongside Bond and learns that autonomy is a vital part of getting the job done. You can't stop to run every last decision by the higher-ups. Conversely, Nomi demonstrates to Bond that the world can and has changed. The film ultimately asks, who is James Bond the man, and what would he leave behind? Physically manifested through his daughter. It's gotten the biggest emotional reactions out of me than any other Bond movie. I've cried every single time I've seen it. First fucking place. Super close to a tie with Casino Royale, I will admit, but I give bonus points to shit if it makes me cry my own emotions. That's power.
I can't knock you for giving it first place. I love this movie. This was a fantastic movie. There's no doubt about it. The perfect culmination to a perfect franchise run. Every step along the way, from Connery to more the Dalton Brosnan era to the Craig era. It just was an incredible step up in movie making and performance all the way around. I'm giving this movie third place, but only because Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace exist. I know people are going to think I'm crazy for thinking Quantum of Solace is a good movie, but people need to really sit back and watch that movie again. Anyway, it is the perfect ending of the James Bond franchise, and Casino Royale is the perfect start, and that's number one for me. So, there you go.
Well, we've come to that time for the last time. Carter, where do you rank Daniel Craig in the James Bond category?
I gave this a lot at number one.
Stupid.
For all of the reasons I just gave. If you honestly go back and watch Sean Connery, and if Sean Connery is your favorite Bond, and you honestly go back and watch him, and he's still your favorite Bond with an honest eye, and you got to watch some Daniel Craig too with an honest eye. Be honest with yourself. Daniel Craig is a better Bond. And take it from me, I do or die Connery man for life until Casino Royale. Until I could see what a real off-the-page James Bond could really be. And Sean Connery's false bravado, and I say Sean Connery's false bravado because that's what it was. It wasn't him acting as James Bond. It was him acting as Sean Connery being James Bond. And that is the difference between Sean Connery and Daniel Craig.
Well, that's why film Bond and book Bond are completely different now.
Right. And that's why Daniel Craig is the better Bond.
You know, Sean Connery died after Craig started his run, and Connery absolutely loved Craig as Bond. The guy who famously shit on Moore loved Craig as Bond, thought he was the best since himself.
Yes, thought he was the best since himself.
You can find interviews where Connery is saying this. Your golden child loved Craig. And honestly, I don't know if you noticed this, but Craig, in his last film with his old face, he's starting to look like Sean Connery did in his old age.
A little bit, yeah.
This is weird.
Mm-hmm.
Most people who say they love Sean Connery, there's a bunch of reasons why you can. You know, maybe he was the first that was introduced to you. Maybe it's because monkey see, monkey do, and we hate to admit it to ourselves. You just know through the zeitgeist that he is the Bond, and your brain has cemented that, and nothing can change it because we're stubborn, stupid monkeys. But when you grow up with an actor playing James Bond, having the anticipation before each film, having the amazing experiences wash over when they come out, can create a bias with people. I mean, I grew up with Brosnan, but Craig is my favorite Bond, but it still happens. Craig managed to get to the heart of Ian Fleming's iconic super spy while continuously pushing the franchise forward in a way that had never been done before and didn't fail at it. Craig leaves behind a legacy that sets an entire new precedent. He reinvented the character and reinvigorated the franchise by dialing back the excess of what a Bond movie should be to rediscover the very essence of Fleming's words on screen. Craig's goal was to make these films the very best they can be, to recruit the finest artists in the world to make blockbuster event cinema. Skyfall set a new precedent that blockbuster cinema should have prestige behind it. And if you're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on entertainment, you should reward the audience with the very best money can buy. Craig destroyed his body to make sure he gave all he could on screen and off, to give us the best Bond that we could ask for. Connery was the Hefner Bond. He played himself, as Carter said. And honestly, I could see why some people like that. If you like his confidence, his swagger, if you like Connery, he's a good, fun Bond to get behind. But he was afraid of animals. He only ran once. He did none of his own stunts. He put in diminishing return on effort per each film.
Oh, man. Was it ever diminishing?
He was in an obvious toupee, and that's your favorite superstar ladies man, world-saving guy. Like, let's be real, as Carter said. Lazenby, meanwhile, should have stayed an underwear model, and he thinks he's the best Bond in the world. Moore was a clown, literally at one point. Dalton was a thespian, and very underrated. And Brosnan was like Indiana Jones, gallivanting around on increasingly unbelievable adventures consequence-free. Craig is the most realistic and believable super-secret agent James Bond. He didn't imitate Connery or act like a buffoon. He was a brutal, skilled agent of death and everything that came with it. His films are filled with nuance, growth, depth, themes, and connection, and almost every one of them are perfect homages, love letters to the past, never forgetting what paved the way before them. If you read the books, Bond does hard drugs, drinks himself near death, is unsure of himself. He's not overly confident. There's no humor. And I'm exhausted hearing bullshit reasons to put Craig's Bond down. First place, he's the best Bond of all time. And I may have started this show to express this to the thicker heads, but it may have been my thick head that's learned something along the way. I love the deep themes and rich writing of this era, whereas I could see someone, honestly, not grasping them well, or maybe just having a more enjoyable experience like Carter does with some that are more fun and less cerebral. Maybe you have a much more enjoyable experience with an earlier film that's more of a turn-your-mind-off kind of ride, like Connery's. And that's okay. In the end, you like what you like. And really, no one's going to change that. But honestly, if you're one of those that can't get over that they killed James Bond, then I will just never understand you. It's a separate run anyways. Jesus, get over it. For everyone that's joined us along the way, it's been a crazy ride. For 1,500 pages written, well over 100 hours recording, and over 2 years of our lives. Thank you.
Yeah, you guys, I can't possibly thank you guys so much for sticking around for this ride. Shout out to all our fans that have been there since the beginning. Shout out to all our fans that have just joined on. And if this is your first podcast, please go back to the beginning and listen to the rest of them because it's gold on there, man. And not just on the fingers. Thank you, guys.
Special shout out to Numinous, who's gone out of his way to make himself #1 fan.
Special shout out to Numinous. Love you, man. I love your comments.
Yeah, words will not express how much we appreciate you specifically.
Yeah. Glad you're here. Helped us get through some of the difficult movies.
As they said, Bond will return. And when he does, so will we. Until then,
I've been Agent Carter.
And I've been Agent Sedgwick.
Stay spying, y'all.
Stay spying, guys. It's been amazing.